Chapter 137. The transfer students hadn't arrived yet, but the news of class allocation had already spread throughout the school. According to the school's explanation, the group of students would be divided into 3, 6, and 9 grades. The ones with the best grades would naturally be in the same class. Therefore, on Friday, the entire school had a big test. Jing Yunzhao's grades had always been very stable, and she did the questions as per normal. When she came out of the examination room, she saw that Xiao Haiqing's expression wasn't very good. Xiao Haiqing's grades had always been above average. These days, under the influence of Jing Yunzhao, she had also read a lot of books. However, in her opinion, there was still some distance between her and the top 50 in the school. Her grades weren't what she was worried about, more or less, it didn't matter. The key was that if she was assigned to another class, then she wouldn't be able to find a better friend than Jing Yunzhao. At this time, her face was full of anger, and her eyebrows were furrowed. That aura made the surrounding students retreat. Looking at Jing Yunzhao, he was calm and composed. His pair of black eyes were deep and clear. He was also a student, but he had a different temperament compared to the others. When the two of them were together, the others didn't dare to come close. "You're still laughing. If I'm eliminated, then you'll have to face that Chao Hongye alone in the future." Xiao Haiqing rolled her eyes at her and scolded her for being heartless. Jing Yunzhao's mouth hooked up, and her eyes shone. "You don't believe me?" In her heart, she treated Xiao Haiqing as her best friend. Usually, she would remind her about her studies. However, with her carefree personality, she didn't realize that she had improved a lot compared to before. Moreover, the class test didn't have a ranking, so naturally, she didn't have the opportunity to know where her strength ranked in the school. Xiao Haiqing didn't need to think about being in the top 10, but she estimated that she could be in the top 30, so there was no need to worry. Xiao Haiqing couldn't do anything about Jing Yunzhao. "I can only throw caution to the wind. If I'm really eliminated, then I'll go back and beg my dad and that woman to give the school some money. No matter what, I have to stay in the first class. If that little slut Chao Hongye bullies you, I'll tear her skin off." After saying that, she coughed twice and pretended to be innocent, as if the person who had just cursed wasn't her. Jing Yunzhao liked Xiao Haiqing's straightforward personality. Seeing her like this made him happy. The results would be officially posted when they were assigned to different classes. There was no point for the two of them to worry about it now. They might as well get rid of their burdens and relax for 2 days. On Monday, the school was in a state of chaos. The announcement was posted with a long list of results and the list of classes that had been redistributed. Jing Yunzhao glanced at it and realized that it was just a class for the top students. Although the students in the other classes were mixed up, their results were the same as before. There were good and bad students mixed together. "Yunzhao, look, I'm here. 28. Ha ha ha, I actually got 28th place. Could there be a mistake in the report card?" Xiao Haiqing was instantly excited. In the past, she would occasionally enter the top 100. When she was playful, she would even enter the top 200. The teachers were already used to her results. But this time, it was clearly a new force to be reckoned with. It was too inconceivable. This kind of improvement had never been seen before. Xiao Haiqing looked at Jing Yunzhao with a fervent gaze. Jing Yunzhao had goosebumps all over his body. Jing Yunzhao got first place again. A little girl at the side said enviously. After saying that, someone turned to look at Jing Yunzhao. The envy in her eyes was self-evident. However, because Jing Yunzhao's cold aura was too strong, Xiao Haiqing was the only one within a 1-meter radius of where she was standing. Good looks, good temperament, and good results. Normal people would go crazy with jealousy when they were together with such a girl. For example, Xiao Hongye. Ha! Xiao Haiqing suddenly pointed at the list of results. She stared and laughed. Xiao Hongye also came to take the exam. And she even got 120th place. Chapter 138. After being yelled at by Xiao Haiqing, the students near the notice board instantly stared at the 3 words, Xiao Hongye. Sure enough, the second place had become someone else. The originally unshakable Xiao Hongye was actually a few rows down. She was indeed 120. The difference between the second place and the 120th place wasn't just a little bit. But Xiao Hongye was placed in class 1. Why? Another person suddenly asked. One sentence stirred up 3 layers of waves. There were many students with good grades here who were upset because of their failure in the exam. Who would have thought that Xiao Hongye could sit in class 1 even though she didn't do well in the exam? Why? They were all students. Since they were going to be divided into classes based on their grades, shouldn't it be a little fairer? Immediately, a few courageous students angrily rushed into the office to ask what was going on. Jing Yunzhao and Xiao Haiqing looked at each other and shrugged. It didn't matter to her which class Xiao Hongye was in. However, that group of students was kicked out not long after. According to the school's explanation, Xiao Hongye took the exam while she was sick. Moreover, her previous results were very good. This failure didn't prove that she didn't have the qualifications to enter class 1. The students couldn't defy the school's decision, but they immediately hated Xiao Hongye. Especially the students of class 1, they felt that their good grades were insulted. They didn't have a good impression of Xiao Hongye even before class officially started. After changing classes, the class teacher naturally changed as well. The new class teacher was surnamed Shi. He was an old man in his 50s. Not only was he strict, he was also very famous. Even the other teachers were the most experienced teachers in the school. They were also on the older side, causing the pressure on the students to multiply. The classroom was filled with students. That teacher Chi stood at the front, wearing a pair of thick glasses. He looked at the report cards with a very serious expression. Which one of you is Jing Yunzhao? Teacher Chi asked with a somewhat hoarse voice. Most of the students were trembling with fear. When they heard the class teacher speak, they immediately made room for Jing Yunzhao. I am. Hello, teacher, Jing Yunzhao said politely. Teacher Chi raised his eyes and glanced at her. She was generous and not stiff. He was slightly satisfied and nodded. Very good. Go in and pick a seat. You can choose a classmate to be your deskmate. This time, Suchu and Gon Jinchen also became her classmates. However, the 2 cousins had a good relationship, so she didn't want to sit with Suchu and chose Xiao Haiqing without hesitation. As a result, the 2 of them occupied the best seats in the class. The students here were all top students. In the past, they only sat in the middle of the front row in other classes. Now, when they thought about being placed at the back, they began to panic. Xiao Hongye was the most helpless. She used to be number 2 in the whole school, but now she was at the bottom of class 1. Her heart was filled with hatred, but she could only follow the transfer student, lest she choose someone else. Jing Yunzhao was in the classroom. He could only hear the class teacher calling out the students' names. Gon Jinchen, Qi Daong, Lu Henin, Jiang Xia, Tang Zihua. Hearing the familiar name, Jing Yunzhao was stunned for a moment. He thought it was someone with the same name, but when he looked up, it was indeed Elder Tang's grandson. He was the transfer student? The Tang family was rich. 2 days ago, he heard that the class allocation was a request from the people who invested in the school. Now that he saw Tang Zihua, it was hard for Jing Yunzhao not to think about it. He saw Tang Zihua walk in alone. He didn't choose a desk mate. His target was clear. He went straight to Jing Yunzhao's direction and sat on Jing Yunzhao's left. The distance between them was only an aisle. Chapter 139. Today, Tang Zihua's complexion looked a bit paler than before. Feeling Jing Yunzhao's astonished gaze, he slightly smiled. It seems I'll have to trouble you in the future. Tang Zihua's manner was gentlemanly, just like a weak and sickly young master. Gan Jinchen, who had already chosen Jing Yunzhao to follow behind, saw this scene and could not help but frown. He had already inquired about the transfer students. There were two people, one was called Tang Zihua, and the other was called He Jiasi. This Tang Zihua's grandfather was the richest man in Ning City, while He Jiasi was the daughter of another family in Ning City. His uncle told him that the relationship between the two families was very good. However, the He family had fallen and was no longer as glorious as before. The reason why the He family sent He Jiasi over was because of this Tang Zihua. They hoped that the two of them could cultivate feelings for each other from a young age. Gan Jinchen looked outside and saw a girl staring at Tang Zihua and Jing Yunzhao. But looking at her eyes, it was as if she wanted to kill Jing Yunzhao, which really made people dislike her. Yunzhao, it's rare for us to be assigned to the same class. Let's have lunch together at noon. Gan Jinchen suddenly said. 4 people, naturally referring to Suchu, Xiao Haiqing, Jing Yunzhao and him. As for that Tang Zihua, although he did not know what he was doing in Huaning County, it was better for Jing Yunzhao to stay away from him. That He Jiasi was definitely not someone to be trifled with. He did not want to make Jing Yunzhao admit defeat, but he did not want her to waste her energy on irrelevant people. Not to mention, her reputation had just taken a turn for the better. If something happened in the future, the gains would not make up for the losses. Okay. Cousin, for the past 2 days you only cared about accompanying Xiao Haiqing and did not care about me. I was bored to death. Suchu's eyes lit up. All kinds of delicious food had already appeared in her mind. Today, her appetite was finally going to be big. Jing Yunzhao really did not know what to do with Suchu. Her personality was cute and she was younger than her. Every day, she would act cute in front of her, making her unable to resist. Let's go home for lunch. I'll cook. Jing Yunzhao smiled. Tang Zihua felt as if he was bathing in the spring breeze. Previously, when he met Jing Yunzhao, she looked cold. Even when she smiled, there was a bit of alienation. She was cold and arrogant and not easy to get along with. But now, she was completely different. She looked very gentle. He thought that gentleness didn't match her at all, but in fact, it made people feel very comfortable. This smile was almost exclusively for Suchu. It was almost only when facing a carefree girl like Suchu that Jing Yunzhao would put down all the defenses in his heart and feel the happiness and kindness that she brought. Good. I love your cooking the most. It's 10,000 times better than my cousin's. By the way, it's better to make medicinal cuisine. I have acne. Suchu continued to nag. As they were talking, an unfamiliar girl appeared in front of them. Almost without any explanation, she directly occupied the seat at the same table as Tang Zihua. Brother Zihua, I heard that there's a restaurant called Heavenly Fragrance Restaurant in Huaning County. The environment inside is especially good. Let's go there at noon, okay? The moment they sat down, the girl hugged Tang Zihua's arm and acted coquettishly. Jing Yunzhao instantly had goosebumps all over. She didn't do it on purpose. It was just that she couldn't accept such a tone. However, she was still considered polite and didn't show it. She turned around and packed her bag. Xiao Haiqing, who was at the side, obviously couldn't stand this kind of scene. She frowned and dug her ears, but seeing that Jing Yunzhao and the boy knew each other, she didn't say anything. Tang Zihua, on the other hand, frowned and pulled his arm out. Jussie, didn't you make a new friend? Why did you come over to sit with me? Chapter 140. The new friend that Tang Zihua was referring to was naturally Chao Hongye. On the day that he Jussie rescued Chao Hongye, she flaunted her great feat to Tang Zihua. Of course, she described Chao Hongye as incomparably miserable. He Jussie pouted, but I want to sit with brother Zihua more. Xiao Yi used to be in this school, so she'll definitely be able to find a suitable desk mate. Hearing the word I, Xiao Haiqing's hands trembled. Even Gan Jinqin and Su Chu pursed their lips. They really had a feeling of wanting to pour out everything they heard. Cousin, let's eat something lighter for lunch. Su Chu whispered. That girl's words were even more greasy than fish and meat. If she ate something fatty for lunch, she might vomit. She was already feeling nauseous. Jing Yunzhao's focus this time was different from the others, Xiao Yi. Chao Hongye was also in this class. Could it be that she was the one they were calling? She simply didn't dare to imagine that Chao Hongye, who had always considered herself a princess, would allow others to call her that. This kind of tone might be intimate and familiar to others, but in Chao Hongye's heart, she might first think of a servant girl. Tang Zihua helplessly glanced at He Jussie, then you can sit here. But this isn't Ning City, so you have to be more serious. He Jussie's lips curled up, I know. Then do you want to accompany me to Heavenly Fragrance Restaurant for lunch? Jing Yunzhao exhaled. Hearing the three words Heavenly Fragrance Restaurant, she couldn't help but think of Li Xiaoyun. She reckoned that young master already hated her to death in his heart. Moreover, Du Lin's tone was very strange when he called her these past 2 days. Jing Yunzhao was lost in her thoughts. Whether Tang Zihua agreed or not, she didn't hear it clearly. Not long after, everyone in the new class had seats. What surprised Jing Yunzhao was that Chao Hongye and Jiang Xia were desk mates. Their seats were right behind He Jussie. Almost everyone who could be considered familiar with her sat together. It would be very lively later on. After the seating arrangements were made, it was time for some class committee members to confirm. Almost all the students in this class had been class committee members before, so they were all eager to try. Jing Yunzhao shrunk her neck, afraid that Teacher Qi would notice her. She really did not care about these trivial matters. Teacher Qi's style made him look like a teacher from ancient times. The moment he arrived, he immediately appointed a student named Shi Daong as the class monitor. This student looked sturdy and was slightly plump, but he was good-looking and seemed to have some sense of responsibility. However, since the class monitor position was fixed, Jing Yunzhao heard someone cautiously say that this class monitor Qi Daong was Teacher Qi's little nephew. Ever since she started practicing martial arts, her hearing had improved greatly. Usually, as long as she listened carefully to the whispers in class, she would be able to hear them clearly. Now, she could hear 2 male students talking behind Teacher Qi's back with envy and hatred. It turned out that jealousy and gossip were not only limited to female students. Jing Yunzhao, you will be the language class representative, Teacher Qi suddenly said. Jing Yunzhao jerked her head up, pursed her lips, and nodded helplessly. Sure enough, whatever she was afraid of would happen. She heard that this old man was so strict in class that it made people's hair stand on end. As his class representative, she reckoned that there would be a lot of pressure in the future. After all the class matters were confirmed, Teacher Qi lectured them and the class ended. Because the classes were redistributed, the progress of each class was different. Therefore, the morning was only a self-study class. The teachers could only prepare the lesson again so that all the students could keep up with the progress. Jing Yunzhao, don't you want to eat too? Why don't we eat together? Jiaxi has already made reservations. It's the same Heavenly Fragrance restaurant from last time. Once the morning class ended, Jing Yunzhao and the others had yet to stand up when Tang Zihua said amiably. Chapter 141. Jing Yunzhao froze for a moment. When he heard the words Heavenly Fragrance Restaurant, he immediately shook his head. Thank you for your kindness, but it's better if I go home and make medicinal cuisine for Chu Chu. After all, the food at Heavenly Fragrance Restaurant is a bit greasy. Su Chu blinked. She suddenly felt that there was something wrong with her words. When she mentioned the word greasy just now, her voice was very soft. How did Jing Yunzhao hear it? Compared to the food outside, I'm more looking forward to Yunzhao's cooking. This time, let me try Chef Jing's cooking. Xiao Haiqing said with a smile as she moved closer to the crook of Jing Yunzhao's neck. I agree. I want to eat cousin's cooking more. Su Chu also squinted her eyes and smiled. What kind of joke was this? Go to Heavenly Fragrance Restaurant. Wouldn't that mean he would have to face this girl called Jiaxi? She wasn't a child anymore, yet she had to hug another boy and act coquettishly. It was so disgusting. Who knew if she would eat more or vomit more? The three girls all refused. Gon Jinchen was even more happy to see this. He spread out his hands to show that he respected the girls. Tang Zihua's face was a bit stiff. He didn't expect to be rejected so straightforwardly. However, he still maintained his good upbringing and demeanor. He smiled and said, "It seems that the food you cook is very delicious. Next time, if there's a chance, I must try it." Jing Yunzhao smiled. His smile was bright and beautiful, but it was somewhat distant. You're called Jing Yunzhao. The girl behind Tang Zihua suddenly stood up. I'm called He Jiaxi. Nice to meet you. You're really pretty. After she finished speaking, she reached out and gave Jing Yunzhao a hug. The girl had some perfume on her. The smell wasn't greasy, but it was very strong. In school, there were very few girls who wore perfume. When he suddenly smelled this smell, Jing Yunzhao's nose itched. He restrained himself and suppressed the urge to sneeze. However, his body moved closer to Xiao Haiqing. This girl's enthusiasm was completely different from Su Chu's. Although she had good intentions, Jing Yunzhao didn't like it very much. By the way, I heard that you and Xiao Yi are sisters? What a coincidence. A week ago, I even helped Xiao Yi. At that time, I don't know who threw her on a small road. He Jiaxi acted as if she didn't feel anything was wrong and continued to smile. Oh right, isn't Xiao Yi going to eat with you guys? At the back, Xiao Hongye's face was already flushed red. It wasn't clear whether it was from embarrassment or anger. Everyone knew about her previous illness, but no one knew the specific reason behind it. Now that He Jiaxi mentioned it in front of so many people, she simply didn't leave any face for her. If it was in the past, she could say that she had been bullied. However, it was different now. She was not stupid. Her classmates did not believe her. If they knew that she had been abandoned on a small road in the middle of the night, not only would they not sympathize with her, they might even think that she had done something bad again. Xiao Hongye understood her previous methods of dealing with people and matters, so when she heard He Jiaxi's words, she immediately felt that He Jiaxi had bad intentions. The tricks she used were all left over from her own play, but the difference now was that she was the one being played. But could she resist? There was only one answer, and that was no. Previously, when He Jiaxi went to the hospital to visit her, she was met by her father. After that, he told her to properly accompany this rich young miss. He Jiaxi personally agreed to let her parents invest in her father's small factory in the future. Therefore, in her father's eyes, Jiaxi was already his big money bag. If she offended her, there would definitely be no good days in the future. Chapter 142. Jing Yunzhao looked at Chao Hongye's sullen expression, not daring to speak, and was greatly astonished. When Xiao Haiqing heard that Jiaxi and Chao Hongye were familiar with each other, she immediately raised her guard against Jiaxi. The Chao family only has Chao Hongye and Chao Zizhou, a pair of fraternal twins. Their surnames are different from Yunzhao's, so how can they be considered sisters? Alright, Yunzhao, I'm about to starve to death, let's go quickly. After she finished speaking, she dragged Jing Yunzhao out of the door, leaving behind an arrogant back view. Suchu and Gan Jinshin hurriedly followed, eager to stay far away from these two transfer students. Jiaxi's eyes flashed with a trace of ridicule, and she lightly snorted, "Brother Zihua, why are the tempers of the people in this small county so strange? I didn't even say anything, and they were so fierce towards me." Tang Zihua frowned. "Alright, I can't stop you if you insist on transferring schools. It's fine if you make a mess of the entire school, but you better stay away from Jing Yunzhao." In order to protect Jing Yunzhao, even though he transferred schools, he didn't tell anyone the purpose of his transfer. After all, Jing Yunzhao was too young and didn't even have a medical license. If other people in the family or outside knew that she was his doctor, who knows what would happen. So the reason he announced to the outside world was very simple, which was to come to Huaning County to relax. Only, he didn't expect that the He family would let Jiaxi follow, and even invest a sum of money in the school to gather these good students together in order to improve the learning environment. Jiaxi looked at him with a wronged expression and said, "Brother Zihua, my father is also worried about the two of us. This small place is filled with a foul atmosphere. Staying with them is already enough of a grievance. If we have to lower ourselves to get along with those bad kids with bad grades, what if they lead us astray? I don't mind, but Brother Zihua, your body isn't good. I don't want those insensible people to offend you." Tang Zihua helplessly shook his head. He didn't know what to say about Jiaxi's thoughts. He and Jiaxi had grown up together. When they were young, she was sweet and kind, but as she grew up, she gradually became more snobbish. Previously, when they were in Serene City, they lived in the same circle of friends, so he didn't think there was anything wrong with it. But now that they were in Huaning County, he should change his previous thoughts. In the future, it's better if you don't say such things. The students in the class are all very good. If you feel that they are not worthy of you, then you can go back to Ning City. Although my health is not good, it's not to the point where I need you to accompany and watch over me all the time," Tang Zihua said with a serious face. After she finished speaking, she looked at the time and glanced at Chao Hongye. "You should accompany your new friends to eat. I'm going back to rest." After a few words, Jiaxi's eyes were already red with anger, but Tang Zihua turned around and left, not giving her any chance to speak. She clenched her teeth, but those tears didn't fall. After a moment, she raised her eyebrows and swept a glance at Chao Hongye. "Since Zihua Ji wants me to treat you to a meal, then I'll let you take advantage of me this time. But you have to properly talk to me about this Jing Yunzhao." Her premonition was the most accurate. Zihua Ji had always maintained a distance with girls, but this time, when he chose a seat, he just had to sit near Jing Yunzhao. She couldn't be sure that the reason he came back to Huaning County this time was for her. Once she thought of someone fighting over Tang Zihua with her, a ball of anger ignited in her heart. But after a while, the corner of her mouth pursed into a smile. She was just a wild brat. Even if she had ambitions for Tang Zihua and even became his girlfriend, she still wouldn't be recognized by the Tang family. At most, she would only be a jumping clown. Chapter 143. Jing Yunzhao's group of 4 returned to Cozy Flower Garden, but their curiosity towards the 2 transfer students didn't stop. In the kitchen, Jing Yunzhao followed the recipes she learned from the spirit jade to make the medicinal cuisine. The fragrance of the food filled the air, causing the 3 people in the living room to salivate. They could only eat some fruits to fill their stomachs. These fruits were all planted by Cousin's master, so they're very fresh. A few days ago, I ate too much spicy food. If it weren't for these fruits, my face would have grown even more pimples. Suchu hugged a big apple and gnawed on it like a hamster. Her cheeks were stuffed until they were round, looking extremely cute. Xiao Haiqing had never been interested in this kind of cute thing. Compared to cute little girls, she preferred Jing Yunzhao's cold queen style. However, facing Suchu, she couldn't bring up the slightest bit of malice. She even couldn't help but be attracted to this extremely cute girl. Perhaps her cuteness was different from those students who pretended to be pure. Xiao Haiqing turned her head to look at the kitchen and casually said, "That Tang Zihua is a bit strange." "Why do you say that?" Suchu didn't understand. Gong Jinchen's eyes darkened. "You think so too?" Tang Zihua looks like a rich second generation. Although he's not ostentatious and looks amiable, his temperament can't lie. For such a person to suddenly come to a small county like ours, I don't believe that he doesn't have a purpose. Xiao Haiqing took a bite of the fruit and said that he Jiasi has a lot of hostility towards Jing Yunzhao. Gong Jinchen continued. "Who cares about her? If she dares to bully my family's Yunzhao, I'll kick her to death. Even a strong dragon can't suppress a local snake." Xiao Haiqing rolled her eyes. Just thinking about that girl made her lose her appetite. The 3 people's voices weren't loud, but Jing Yunzhao heard them clearly. She felt helpless and moved. In his previous life, he didn't have a single friend and lived a miserable life. This feeling of being protected by others was quite good. A smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. She placed the dishes on the table. Xiao Haiqing held her arm tightly and refused to let go. "Yunzhao, you smell so good." Xiao Haiqing acted like a hooligan. Jing Yunzhao was overjoyed. "It smells like oil and smoke, and you're still talking about it. If you think it smells good, go to the kitchen. I guarantee you'll get enough of it." Have you guys realized that my Yunzhao is really cute right now? Why am I not a man? I really want to kiss him. Xiao Haiqing didn't care about what Jing Yunzhao said at all. Her eyes were filled with hearts. After she was pushed away, she grabbed Suchu and complained. Being teased by Xiao Haiqing like this, Jing Yunzhao blushed a little. After all, this was the first time in his life. Gong Jinchen followed his gaze and looked at Jing Yunzhao. His heart suddenly jumped, and he quickly retracted his gaze. Jing Yunzhao was tall and skinny, but she had developed well. However, she wasn't charming at all. Her slender phoenix eyes were clear and cold, her eyebrows were jet black, and her thin lips were dark red, giving off a faint smile. Because she was at home, her hair was tied up in a shawl, giving off a sense of laziness and casualness. Her eyes looked at everyone, indifferent, but with a unique light. Perhaps it was because of Xiao Haiqing's teasing, the tips of her ears were a little red. However, because of her naturally alienated temperament, she seemed a little arrogant and stubborn, giving off a different kind of cuteness. Gong Jinchen breathed a sigh of relief. He was a good student and didn't want to fall in love early. However, living with a girl like Jing Yunzhao was too stressful. Gong Jinchen, why is your face red? Don't tell me you want to kiss my Yunzhao too. Xiao Haiqing smiled mischievously and said, but don't even think about it. Yunzhao is mine. When Gong Jinchen heard this, his face, which wasn't red at all, suddenly seemed to be smoking. His head was about to drill under the floor tiles. Chapter 144. Xiao Haiqing's prank was successful, and she couldn't stop laughing. Even Suchu didn't care about her image and cooperated with him, wishing she could take a picture of his embarrassing appearance. However, Gon Jinshan's personality was also considered open-minded. The more the two girls fought, the calmer he became. After a while, he saw that Jing Yunzhao's attitude was no longer as nervous as before. The four of them ate and chatted happily. After eating, Jing Yunzhao received a call from Hua Zhe. Only then did she know that Chao Xing had been released. Chao Xing's crime wasn't serious, so it was normal for him to be released at this time. However, when she thought of the complicated situation now, Jing Yunzhao mourned for Chao Hongye for a minute. That Hijiasi was obviously not easy to get along with. Now that Chao Xing was involved, Chao Hongye might not even be able to leave school in the future. However, just as Hua Zhe hung up, Du Lin called again. The anxiety in his voice made Jing Yunzhao's heart tighten. Yunzhao, we're in trouble this time. Du Lin sighed for a long time before he finally spoke. Jing Yunzhao was shocked by his strange tone. What happened? Is there a problem with Yu Tianqian's ingredients? If it was a problem with the ingredients, she was sure that it wasn't caused by her. The delivery uncle was honest and straightforward, so it was impossible for him to tamper with the ingredients. There was an 80 to 90% chance that something had happened to one of Yu Tianqian's own people. However, before Jing Yunzhao could say this, Du Lin said, "It's young Master Li. Young Master Li is hospitalized." The doctor said. Sigh. Anyway, he's very pitiful right now. Jing Yunzhao's face fell. What did young Master Li's problem have to do with her? However, when she thought about it, the kick she gave him earlier appeared in her mind, and she felt a little guilty. Tell me more clearly. Is he sick or what happened? At this time, on the other end of the phone, Du Lin was holding back his laughter. He pulled a crying face and said, This is hard to say. Sigh, he's injured. It's very serious. What will happen to the Li family's huge business? Jing Yunzhao's heart skipped a beat, and his face turned bitter. Her previous kick was a little harsh, but Li Xiaoyun had avoided it a little, so she naturally felt that Li Xiaoyun's condition shouldn't be serious, not to mention that it had been so long. But now that Du Lin was crying, she was a little uncertain. After all, she was a martial artist, and her strength was different from ordinary people. Perhaps she had caused irreversible damage to Li Xiaoyun at that time. How about this? I'll go and see him now. Which hospital is he in? Jing Yunzhao quickly asked. At the end of the day, not only did Li Xiaoyun not harm her, he even kindly reminded her before. Now that things had turned out this way, she also felt uncomfortable. Moreover, with Li Xiaoyun's appearance, she could tell that he didn't lack women. If she affected his future happiness, wouldn't she be cursed to death by those women? After Du Lin left the address, Jing Yunzhao left some instructions to Xiao Haiqing and the other two before she hurriedly left. On the other side, after Du Lin hung up the phone, he heaved a sigh of relief and said with a guilty look, Young Master Li, you're also two-faced, aren't you? The little girl must be feeling guilty right now. Are you sure it's guilt? Li Xiaoyun raised his eyebrows and smiled. I think she might want to see my illness more. You can't be so desperate, right? Jing Yunzhao isn't even 16 years old yet. How could she want to see your illness? Du Lin rolled his eyes. Why didn't he realize that young Master Li was so dirty before? Li Xiaoyun glanced at him and pointed to the bandage on his head. You're thinking too much. I'm talking about here. When did I say that I wanted her to see my illness in other areas? Then you still want me to lie to her? Du Lin immediately glared at him. This young master is injured. Li Xiaoyun narrowed his eyes and refused to admit it. Chapter 145. In less than 20 minutes, Jing Yunzhao arrived at the hospital. Li Xiaoyun was staying in a single ward. The moment she stepped through the door, she saw Li Xiaoyun squinting his eyes and pretending to be asleep. His face was pale and his forehead was wrapped in bandages. When she came, she had already asked the nurse. Li Xiaoyun was admitted to the hospital because of a car accident. Logically speaking, it had nothing to do with her. Jing Yunzhao was carrying a fruit basket in her hand. The fruits in the basket were all replaced with fruits from the space, which smelled sweet and fragrant. "You're here." Du Lin quickly got up and looked at Jing Yunzhao's attitude with some embarrassment. Li Xiaoyun had a car accident. His forehead and leg are injured. Jing Yunzhao's expression was strange. Because Du Lin was present, she couldn't directly express her purpose of coming. After all, she was facing two big men. She couldn't ask them what the car accident had to do with her beating someone before. Li Xiaoyun slowly opened his eyes. His pale face looked a little more pitiful than before, losing some of his arrogance and recklessness. However, the noble aura on his body only increased, not decreased. It was just that his eyes were a little disappointed, causing Jing Yunzhao to feel guilty. "How did you get into a car accident? What did the doctor say?" Since she was already here, she should be concerned. Jing Yunzhao quickly asked. "Who knows?" A big truck suddenly rushed over from the side of the road. Fortunately, the driver reacted fast enough. Otherwise, he would have lost his life. Du Lin explained. He didn't know much about Li Xiaoyun. However, after the car accident, Li Xiaoyun's eyes were full of murderous intent, which really scared him. He took the initiative to investigate. The truck driver said that the brakes suddenly failed and didn't see anything wrong at all. Du Lin had been with Li Xiaoyun for many years. He always knew what to ask and what not to ask, so Du Lin didn't know whether he had offended someone or it was really an accident. Du Lin's words made Jing Yunzhao feel even more innocent. If that was the case, then the accident had nothing to do with her. Why did he inform her, a person he was not very familiar with? What was the meaning of this? Du Lin was also a shrewd person. He could tell that Jing Yunzhao was unhappy and immediately said in a low voice, "Yunzhao, bear with it. Actually, young Master Li is quite pitiful. He doesn't have any friends. In the whole of Huaning County, except for me, you're probably the only one who is familiar with him. Moreover, you're a doctor. Help him take a look. What if something goes wrong with his brain in the future?" Jing Yunzhao took a deep breath and whispered, "Are you such a failure?" But thinking about it, with such a playboy face, no matter where he went, he would probably attract a bunch of crazy bees and butterflies. Women were jealous of each other, and men were no exception. Which man would be willing to be friends with such a young, handsome, and rich person like Li Xiaoyun? He might even be cuckolded. Before they were assigned to different classes, many of Li Xiaoyun's classmates who had seen him still couldn't forget him. It was said that there were many who secretly ran to the entrance of the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant to ask for a chance encounter. Although Jing Yunzhao's voice was soft, Li Xiaoyun heard it. His face was dark and gloomy. "It's fine as long as you know that he's a failure. Don't be fooled by his appearance. In reality, he's very bored and lonely every day. Otherwise, he wouldn't let the driver drive him around all the time. Now he's in the hospital. My Yu Tianxian is still busy and can't accompany him all the time. What if he goes crazy?" Du Lin looked like he was begging for help. After saying that, he admired himself. His ability to bullshit was getting better and better. However, there was one thing that was true. Yu Tianxian was really busy. Now, business was getting better and better. As the boss, he had the secret recipe. Although there were many chefs under him, sometimes there were a few special guests that he still needed to personally cook. Chapter 146. Li Xiaoyun knew some people in Huaning County, but other than Du Lin, the rest were businessmen who wanted to cling onto the Li family's thigh. Many years ago, when Li Xiaoyun came to Huaning County alone, he had already felt the enthusiasm of those people. Since then, Li Xiaoyun tried his best to keep a low profile. This also led to Li Xiaoyun not having any connections in Huaning County. Du Lin said that Li Xiaoyun was pitiful. Although Li Xiaoyun heard it clearly, he didn't say anything. Jing Yunzhao glanced at Li Xiaoyun, her eyes flashing with disbelief. How could such a smart person go crazy from boredom? She wasn't a child, and Du Lin's words were probably 30% true and 70% false. But looking at the deserted ward, she was sure that no one else had come except for her and Du Lin. How about this, I'll come over in the afternoon. I have classes at other times, Jing Yunzhao said after some consideration. That's great. Du Lin was immediately happy. Even if it was only in the afternoon, it would be good. God knew how hard it was to please Li Xiaoyun. Hiding for a while was good. Are you happy? Behind him, Li Xiaoyun snorted coldly. Du Lin had goosebumps, and a smile appeared on his face. I'm happy for you. In the future, when I'm not around, there will be someone to talk to you. Li Xiaoyun glanced at him, his deep eyes penetrating to the bottom of his heart. Du Lin grinned, not afraid of him. The first time Li Xiaoyun came to Huaning County, he was only 16 years old. At that time, there was a huge commotion. Someone specially held a banquet to curry favor with him. There were children of the same age at the banquet, and they used many methods to get close to Li Xiaoyun. But at that time, Li Xiaoyun wasn't like this. Although he was still handsome, his expression was somewhat gloomy and unapproachable. His father was the head chef of that restaurant at that time, and he happened to be there as well. He personally saw the scene of him coldly watching others make a ruckus. That expression was still unforgettable. Later, by coincidence, he spoke a few words with Li Xiaoyun and took him to eat a special imperial dish made by his father. Perhaps because of this, he left a little impression on him. When he came back the next year, he only contacted him. Since then, their relationship had been getting better and better. In terms of understanding Li Xiaoyun, Du Lin was still somewhat confident. This guy looked like a playboy now, but in fact, his heart was no different from a few years ago. He could not be offended. His attitude toward strangers might be smiling on the surface, but his heart was definitely cold and indifferent. However, if it was someone that he had taken a liking to, even if his tone was frightening, it would definitely have nothing to do with getting angry. Just like now, even though she was speaking in a sarcastic tone, she might still be praising him in her heart. Of course, it was also because of this that Du Lin treated Jing Yunzhao differently. After all, in the past few years, only Jing Yunzhao had caused so much trouble for Li Xiaoyun. If not for the fact that Jing Yunzhao was only 15 years old, he would have believed that Li Xiaoyun had taken a fancy to her. Du Lin was busy with business, so after Jing Yunzhao agreed, he immediately returned to Yutianxian after exchanging a few pleasantries. In the ward, Jing Yunzhao and Li Xiaoyun were staring at each other. They were so embarrassed. Jing Yunzhao looked around the ward. It was a single room with a bathroom and a kitchen. It was quiet all around, and there were even some plants in the room. It was definitely a first in this hospital. Don't you have anything to say? Li Xiaoyun was half asleep when he suddenly opened his mouth and asked. Chapter 147. His voice was lazy and a little hoarse and magnetic. Coupled with his extremely handsome yet arrogant face, there was an indescribable sexiness to it. Jing Yunzhao had lived for 2 lifetimes and had never seen anyone more outstanding than Li Xiaoyun in terms of appearance, voice, and figure. Of course, her social circle in her previous life was very small. When she met many people, she was either in school or in prison. Since Li Xiaoyun couldn't get up at the moment, Jing Yunzhao simply sat down and picked up an apple. "Want to eat? You really don't have anything to say?" Li Xiaoyun asked again. Jing Yunzhao pretended not to hear. "Then I'll eat it myself." Li Xiaoyun's mouth twitched. Looking at the little girl in front of him, he thought that after all, Jing Yunzhao was young. As an adult, he should be more or less polite to her. Only then did he squeeze out a half-smile. "Speaking of my accident, it has something to do with you." Jing Yunzhao's hand paused. "The person driving the big truck wasn't me." "I know." Li Xiaoyun's mouth curved. "But ever since you kicked me, my mental state hasn't been very good. That's why I asked the driver to drive me around. Although you're not an adult, you're a doctor. You should know what men value the most. Originally, I already had some obstacles in my heart. In the end, I met with a car accident. I think there's a possibility that our Li family will have no descendants." For some reason, Li Xiaoyun did not know why he had said such inappropriate words. However, he had always been sure of his intuition. He was curious and interested in Jing Yunzhao. Even when he saw her, he would be in a good mood. Therefore, he was willing to put down his status to get closer to her. She was simple but resilient. He felt that Jing Yunzhao could be another Du Lin, one of the few friends he had in Huaning County. However, there seemed to be a difference. Perhaps it was because of her age. In short, at the moment of the car accident, he was still inexplicably obsessed with this girl whom he had only met a few times. That must mean that he considered her as one of his own. Since she was one of his own, it was natural to attack, win her over, and cultivate feelings. It was a pity that she was a little young. When he said this, he actually felt a little guilty. Jing Yunzhao stared blankly. She did not believe Li Xiaoyun's words at all. "Young Master Li, you should remember the reason why I took action at that time. I don't like outsiders getting too close to me. If you didn't touch me at that time, I don't think I would have acted so quickly." Jing Yunzhao quibbled. Li Xiaoyun felt some lingering fear when he recalled the scene that day. Fortunately, he had been learning martial arts since he was a child, so his reaction speed was better than the average person's. Otherwise, he would have been crippled. "I'm just being polite." Li Xiaoyun's eyes darkened. After 2 seconds, he said, "Speaking of which, I hope you can explain to me why you vomited at that time." Jing Yunzhao had lived for more than 20 years and had been praised by others for 20 years. That vomit had almost wiped out his little bit of pride. The scene at that time was still vivid in his mind. He could be sure that Jing Yunzhao was not faking it. She was really disgusted by him. That day, he went back and let Du Lin smell him. There was no strange smell on him at all. This caused him to soak in the bathtub for a few hours. "At that time, I was just thinking about some unpleasant memories. My reaction at that time was indeed too intense. I apologize for that." Jing Yunzhao was very straightforward. Li Xiaoyun was obviously a narcissistic person. Her reaction at that time had indeed brought him some blows. However, she could not help but feel that this guy was asking for trouble. Chapter 148. Li Xiaoyun's eyes flashed with a trace of scrutiny. He did have some doubts in his heart. When he first met Jing Yunzhao, he didn't expect to see her again in the future. He just felt that she was different from other girls her age, so he was more polite and paid more attention to her. Later, When he met her at Su Lao's place, he realized that although she looked young, she was very mature when talking to Su Lao. Her actions and words were more like an adult's, and her thoughts were meticulous and sensitive. Because of this, for the first time, he asked someone to investigate a little girl who was completely unrelated to him. The information he obtained was very simple, but it was also shocking. She was secretly raised by her adoptive parents. Her adoptive mother passed away. Her adoptive father seemed to be a successful person in that small town, but in fact, he was greedy and stingy. She also had a pair of younger siblings, but they didn't seem to get along with each other. Not long ago, Jing Yunzhao also cut ties with that family. At her age, it was impossible for her to come into contact with too many outsiders, but she said that the vomiting reaction was caused by some bad memories. Then it was easy to guess where those memories came from. First of all, the other party should be a man. A man who could leave a deep impression on Jing Yunzhao. Then it should be her adoptive father, right? Li Xiaoyun was inexplicably angry, but in front of Jing Yunzhao, he restrained himself. His eyes were dark, but the corners of his mouth curved into a smile. Forget it. Seeing that you are sincere enough, I will forgive you this time. Jing Yunzhao's mouth twitched. Then I really have to thank you for your great kindness. Jing Yunzhao finished peeling the apple and ate it by herself. Li Xiaoyun, the patient, was unbelievably obedient. If Du Lin was the one doing this, Li Xiaoyun would probably be furious. At this time, hearing the sound of Jing Yunzhao eating, Li Xiaoyun's smile slowly became faintly discernible as he patiently waited for Jing Yunzhao to finish eating. Only then did he extend his hand to let Jing Yunzhao take a look and broaden her horizons. He was quite good at reading people. How could he not know that Jing Yunzhao was currently using the patient as a guinea pig? However, being a divine doctor's lab rat was much safer than being an ordinary doctor's top patient. Li Xiaoyun looked at Jing Yunzhao as if he was looking at a growth-type miracle doctor. After Jing Yunzhao left, he asked the nurse to get the medicine and drink it. He didn't feel the slightest pressure in his heart. His trust also came inexplicably. Li Xiaoyun attributed all of this to one word, fate. The hour spent in the ward was actually not a long time. Li Xiaoyun did not put on the airs of a young master. When she did not speak, the other party was very quiet most of the time, so Jing Yunzhao simply read her book and did not disturb each other. Although she had been reborn, she had already dropped out of school in her previous life. If she did not continue to study seriously, her grades would not be able to keep up. Fortunately, because of the absorption of the spirit jade, her memory was much better, and learning was easier than in her previous life. For the next few days, Jing Yunzhao kept going to the hospital. His days were extremely busy. Every day, he would take a look at Tang Zihua's condition. However, in order to prevent others from thinking too much, Jing Yunzhao would enter the classroom very early in the past few days and take his pulse before the other students arrived. Tang Zihua's wrist was cold. After changing Jing Yunzhao's medicine, his complexion became much better. Do you feel any different recently? Jing Yunzhao asked while taking his pulse. My appetite is a little bigger than before. Does that count? Tang Zihua was a little embarrassed. Of course it counts. Jing Yunzhao pursed his lips. Medicine is 30% poisonous. Eating is better than taking medicine. Moreover, your appetite is good now, which means that your body's tolerance has increased a little. Didn't the old people say that eating is a blessing? Looking at her serious appearance, Tang Zihua could not help but laugh. However, just as Jing Yunzhao was about to withdraw his hand, someone at the door suddenly shouted, "What are you guys doing?" Chapter 149. Jing Yunzhao looked back and saw two familiar figures. She helplessly retracted her hand and wiped it with a wet tissue. She didn't have the panicked expression that the two imagined. Seeing that Jing Yunzhao didn't speak, He Jiaxi curled her lips and walked in front of Tang Zihua. Brother Zihua, people from this small place don't know what shame is. Isn't pulling and pulling so early in the morning intentionally affecting your state of mind and your studies? If uncle finds out later, he'll definitely transfer you back. Following He Jiaxi was Qiao Hongye. Qiao Hongye was obviously a boarding student. Jing Yunzhao really didn't understand why these two people would appear at the same time. How could Jing Yunzhao know that although He Jiaxi looked easy to get along with, she was actually overbearing? That's why she specifically had Qiao Hongye wait for her at the school gate every day so that she could accompany her into the classroom to show that they had a good relationship. At this time, Qiao Hongye looked at Jing Yunzhao in disgust. Her eyes contained a bit of ridicule, as if she was a mistress caught by the main wife. Sister, you're wrong here. Qiao Hongye faintly opened her mouth. Jing Yunzhao's eyes darkened. The corner of her mouth pursed lightly and slowly pulled into a cold arc. She opened her mouth and said, "Shut your mouth. I don't need you to teach me whether I'm right or wrong." Qiao Hongye's face was unsightly. "I'm doing this for your own good." "So you're saying that I have to thank you?" Jing Yunzhao sneered. She swept a glance at her and said mercilessly, "Qiao Hongye, in the past, I thought that although your character wasn't that good, at least you still had a bit of backbone. But I really overestimated you. Acting like a servant dog, your servile nature is really getting stronger and stronger these few days. It's impossible for me not to have a whole new level of respect for you." Qiao Hongye's face instantly turned red. She didn't know when it started, but she couldn't surpass Jing Yunzhao and also couldn't win against Jing Yunzhao. "You're just trying to be brave. Seducing Tang Zihua, you'll know how the Tang family, He family will deal with you in the future." Qiao Hongye lowered her voice and said fiercely. Compared to someone like He Jiaxi, her pride and dignity were practically nothing. What could she do? When Qiao Hongye said this, Tang Zihua's sickly face became a bit more sullen. He coldly looked at He Jiaxi. "You're the one who told Qiao Hongye this." He Jiaxi. He Jiaxi, however, had an aggrieved look on her face as she tugged at Tang Zihua's arm. "Brother Zihua, what did I tell Qiao Hongye? Both of you with discerning eyes can see it. Brother Zihua, I'm obviously your girlfriend. She's messing around with you behind my back. It's her fault." "Girlfriend?" Tang Zihua's face sank. "He Jiaxi, I never knew that you had already placed yourself in this position. Has the Tang family been too good to the He family all these years?" During old man Tang's generation, the He family's financial resources were abundant and could be considered to be on par with the Tang family. However, later on, the He family's old man fell ill and passed away, while the Tang family's development became more and more powerful. From then on, the difference between the two families was like heaven and earth. The He family's business was a large enterprise compared to the businesses in Huaning County, but it couldn't be compared to the Tang family. Old man Tang cherished old friendships. Even when the He family declined, he still gave the He family enough face. The younger generation of the two families interacted very closely and usually helped the He family a lot. The entire Ning city knew that the Tang family was the He family's big backer. He Jiaxi's heart skipped a beat, and her complexion turned pale. Although she grew up together with Tang Zihua, in reality, Tang Zihua was still a boy. When the two of them interacted, there was still some distance between them. Moreover, they had never confirmed the so-called boyfriend and girlfriend relationship. Chapter 150. However, He Jiaxi's parents had high hopes for her. From the first time she stepped into the Tang family, she knew what she wanted to do. She aimed for the identity of Tang Zihua's future wife. Moreover, the old man liked her a lot. She believed that if it weren't for her young age, the old man would have already set her as his wife. Moreover, she really admired Tang Zihua. He was handsome and gentle. In the past, when they were in Ning City's school, many students envied her for having such an outstanding childhood sweetheart. Even though she knew that Tang Zihua was only being polite and not intimate with her, she still couldn't restrain the pride in her bones. Every day, she wanted to stand by his side legitimately. That was why she disregarded everything and went to Huaning County. However, she didn't expect that Tang Zihua would actually berate her for Jing Yunzhao. She was just a wild girl from a small place. Moreover, he had only known her for a few days. How could she compare to their more than 10 years of relationship? He Jiaxi was unwilling and angry, but she knew the meaning behind Tang Zihua's words. She didn't dare to joke about the He family. Immediately, the stiff expression on her face froze for a moment. In the next second, she forcefully retracted her anger and said coquettishly, "Zihua Ji, don't be angry. I just said something wrong. I'm not your girlfriend." These words made it seem as if Jing Yunzhao's mistress was bullying her. Qiao Hongye didn't expect that He Jiaxi would wilt so quickly without any resistance. For a moment, it was as if a fly had stuffed her mouth. Her heart was extremely vexed. However, Qiao Hongye reacted quickly. She could see that He Jiaxi was no longer admiring Tang Zihua, but fearful. She originally thought that He Jiaxi was a rich missy and couldn't be offended. But now, it seemed that compared to Tang Zihua, she was a star and a half away. His heartbeat suddenly sped up. Qiao Hongye carefully glanced at Tang Zihua. Then, she pursed her lips and lowered her head, restraining the excitement and joy in her eyes. She hated her current life to death. The Tang family. If she could make Tang Zihua like her in the future, she might be able to rewrite her life in a few years. Moreover, she was still young. The feelings of youth were the simplest and purest. She believed in her ability. As long as she could make Tang Zihua set his eyes on her, she could guarantee that he would never change his feelings. What a great opportunity did the heavens give her. Who said that only childhood sweethearts could be considered childhood sweethearts? If he started to cultivate his feelings now, no one would be able to compare to him in the future. As for He Jiaxi, she was indeed outstanding, but her excellence came from her status, and Tang Zihua did not lack status. Jiaxi, when Grandpa He passed away, he begged my grandfather to take care of the He family. My grandfather has helped your family deal with some troubles for the sake of his old friend, but this doesn't mean that the Tang family is a fool. I know very well why you came to Huaning County, but I've already told you that although I'm willing to take care of you, it's only because I'm your sister. If you want to do something else, I'm sorry, but I can't do it, Tang Zihua said solemnly. After speaking, she glanced at Jing Yunzhao and said, "Jing Yunzhao and I are not what you think. Don't find trouble with her in the future. Otherwise, even if you don't want to, you can only return to Serene City." He Jiaxi's body trembled. Her fluttering eyelashes were covered with sparkles, and her face was full of grievances. "I know. Brother Zihua, don't be angry with me. I won't be like this in the future." He Jiaxi could only whisper to please him. Chapter 151. Although Tang Zihua's words were harsh, Jing Yunzhao could see that he was somewhat protective of He Jiaxi. At present, there was no one else in the class except for the four of them, so Tang Zihua berated He Jiaxi like this. If other students came, Tang Zihua would have only whispered a warning. However, Tang Zihua's connivance was also within Jing Yunzhao's expectations. After all, even if they weren't boyfriend and girlfriend, they were indeed brother and sister who grew up together. If Tang Zihua only blindly reprimanded He Jiaxi without any soft-heartedness, then she would have even suspected that Tang Zihua didn't have a heart. Jing Yunzhao, I'm sorry that you've been misunderstood. Tang Zihua apologized. Jing Yunzhao lifted her eyes with a bit of indifference. This is the first time, so I won't haggle over it. But I hope that next time, some people won't speak without thinking. Just because I don't fight back doesn't mean that I don't have a temper. If you anger me, no matter who you are, go back to where you came from. Forgive me for not accompanying you. To put it bluntly, if Tang Zihua couldn't control his people, then she wouldn't treat this illness. Doctors also have a temper. Letting a patient make a fuss was the Virgin Mary. Unfortunately, she didn't have the ability to purify all living things. Tang Zihua's face stiffened, but he couldn't help but reveal a trace of a bitter smile. You can rest assured that next time, I won't give her face. These past few days, Jing Yunzhao was amiable in class. It almost made him forget that the girl in front of him wasn't someone who was easy to bully. How could she talk with his grandfather without any pressure, be a soft persimmon? Tang Zihua's attitude towards Jing Yunzhao made He Jiaxi's heart endlessly shocked. In her eyes, Tang Zihua was the treasured child of the Tang family. Even old man Tang would never scold this grandson of his. Needless to say, the young masters of Ning City treated Tang Zihua with even more respect. They couldn't wait to worship him, so how could they be so impolite? But Jing Yunzhao actually dared to be so disrespectful. What did she mean by go back to where she came from? Could it be that she, a country bumpkin, could decide whether Tang Zihua should stay or go? He Jiaxi's gaze seemed to want to kill Jing Yunzhao. It was very sinister, but Jing Yunzhao only turned his head and glanced at her with contempt. No matter how high He Jiaxi's status was, in the end, she was still just a little girl, childish. Jiaxi, don't be angry with my elder sister. She doesn't have any bad intentions. She even saved a classmate before. I saw that she was just taking Tang Zihua's pulse for fun. We must have misunderstood. At this moment, Chao Hongye gently said to He Jiaxi. This gave He Jiaxi a way out of the embarrassing situation, and at the same time, she could also make her presence known in front of Tang Zihua. He Jiaxi exhaled. Is that so? Then I must be thinking too much. Brother Zihua, don't be angry with me. Yesterday's homework was too difficult. I didn't sleep well last night, so my temper is so bad today. Why don't you help me look at my homework? Tang Zihua looked at Chao Hongye in astonishment, leaving a pretty good impression. His expression also eased, and he pointed at He Jiaxi's homework book. Behind the two, Chao Hongye packed up her school bag and looked at Tang Zihua, who was only a foot away from her. The feeling of jealousy in her heart overturned the seas and rivers, but it also floated up a wave of expectation and confidence. Jing Yunzhao secretly shook his head. It seemed that it would be better to keep a certain distance from Tang Zihua in the future. In any case, his body didn't have any problems for the time being. As long as he took his medicine on time, he didn't need to take his pulse every day. Previously, she was too careful and responsible. Noon. The sun was shining brightly, making people's skin feel as if it was about to be burnt. Ever since Jing Yunzhao started practicing martial arts, his ability to adapt to temperature had improved a lot, so he still felt refreshed. Just as he stepped out of the door, he saw a familiar face at the school gate. However, rather than calling it a familiar face, it was better to call it an old friend from his previous life. This was the first time they met in this life. Chapter 152. Jing Yunzhao knew very few people in her previous life, especially the opposite sex. However, the person in front of her had helped her many times. This person was called Pak Yuan. It was said that he had graduated from a famous school and had been working in Beijing. His parents lived in their hometown and were from Ningxiang town. Originally, such a person should have lived a good life in Beijing and had nothing to do with her. However, Pak Yuen was very unlucky. He had a girlfriend who was from the same university as him, and the two of them had successfully married. However, although Pak Yuen had a good job and a good future, he did not have a backer. His qualifications were shallow and his family was ordinary. Therefore, the two of them could only take a loan to buy a house in Beijing and live. Speaking of which, it could be said that they found joy in hardship and even had a pair of twin sons. However, it was a pity that their happy life did not last. Pak Yuen accidentally found out that his wife had cheated, and the person she cheated on was his big boss. That big boss had a wife and a daughter. However, Pak Yuen's wife was afraid of being poor and did not care about all this. She became the mistress of his boss. When he angrily questioned her, his wife actually told him that his sons were also someone else's. Pak Yuen did not believe it, but the test results told him that he had been cuckolded for a few years and had even raised someone else's son for a few years. More importantly, he had been running around every day for the man who had cuckolded him. The reason why his work was not going well and he had not been promoted was completely in front of him. He could only resolutely divorce and resign. However, his boss did not let him go and had done something behind his back several times. Pak Yuen was already disheartened, so he simply sold the house and returned to Ningxiang town to start a small business to take care of his parents. After Pak Yuen returned to his previous life, he opened a small restaurant, but the business was not good. However, every time Jing Yunzhao was starving at home, she would always receive porridge and rice from Pak Yuen. At that time, Pak Yuen might have thought that she was young and pitiful, but to Jing Yunzhao, she had done him a great favor. Moreover, when she killed Qiao Weiman and the police investigated, the neighbors all said that she had a vicious heart since she was young. Only Pak Yuen spoke up for her. After she went to prison, he was the only one who came to see her occasionally. At this moment, Jing Yunzhao did not know why Pak Yuen would appear here, but she had to admit that even after a lifetime, her gratitude towards Pak Yuen was still very strong. After pondering for a moment, he walked over. The other party was also stunned when he saw her. He felt that she looked familiar. "Are you Uncle Bai?" Jing Yunzhao smiled at him. "I'm Jing Yunzhao, the one who used to live near your house. It's you. I haven't seen you for a few years and you've already grown so big. I remember the last time I saw you, you were only 4 or 5 years old, but you're still as skinny as before." Pak Yuen's slightly gloomy eyebrows relaxed as he said with a smile. He was extremely shocked. In the past, he liked this little neighbor very much. She was soft and had been very stubborn since she was young. A long time ago, he had thought that it would be great if he could give birth to such a cute and beautiful daughter. "Uncle Bai, are you here to look for someone?" Jing Yunzhao asked. Pak Yuen shook his head. "I studied in this school more than 10 years ago. There was a teacher who helped me a lot, so I thought that I would drop by to take a look. However, it's fine if I didn't meet you, but I think the teacher knows me." Jing Yunzhao nodded. Pak Yuen said again, "Since you've just finished school, I'll treat you to a meal. I remember that you were very greedy when you were young. Every time I saw you, you would hold your stomach and say that you were very hungry." Jing Yunzhao pursed her lips and smiled. At that time, she was not greedy, but she was often hungry. Chapter 153. After meeting Pak Yuen, Jing Yunzhao had an idea in her heart, so she accepted his invitation. The two of them found a small restaurant near the school and sat down. Jing Yunzhao was thinking about how to bring it up. Pak Yuen was a talent. In her previous life, although he was dispirited for a period of time, he still started his own business. It was a difficult start, but it was successful. However, Jing Yunzhao died early, so she didn't know how far he had grown. This kind of person was exactly what she needed. She had the funds and the ideas, but she lacked someone she could trust. Little Jing, what are you looking at me for? Bai Yuan felt his hair stand on end from being stared at by her. He touched his unshaven face and asked. Uncle Bai, are you not going to leave this time? Are you going to open a small restaurant in town? Jing Yunzhao asked calmly. Pak Yuan was shocked when he heard this. How did you know? He hadn't told anyone about this yet. His family's matters had left him exhausted. He originally wanted to come back and relax, but the two elders had lost their grandson, so they were already in a daze. If it weren't for the fact that they were worried about their son, they might not have been able to hold on. Although he was sad and indignant, he still had to live. Even if he didn't think about himself, he had to think about the two elders. Therefore, he decided to settle down in town and open a small restaurant to make a living, so that he wouldn't run out of money. Jing Yunzhao smiled mysteriously. You don't need to know how I found out, but let me give you a piece of advice. Opening a restaurant isn't a good thing for you. Uncle Bai, even though Grandpa Bai used to be in this line of work, that was a long time ago. They're old and can't help you. Plus, you used to do some mental work in the capital. Being a chef requires a lot of physical strength, so you might not be able to keep up. Plus, there are a lot of restaurants in town, and their food isn't bad. If your scale is too small, others won't like it. Most importantly, he didn't have all kinds of secret recipes like Du Lin, so the food he made tasted great. When she went to eat in her previous life, she could taste that although the taste was not bad, the taste was not stable, and the speed of the dishes being served was very slow. Pak Yuan was stunned by Jing Yunzhao's words. Was this the same little radish head that he had seen before? In the past, Jing Yunzhao was a yes man. He was extremely skinny. Although he was stubborn, he looked extremely pitiful and quiet. But now, he was sitting opposite him and talking with assurance. This kind of expression made him look like an adult. Are you really Jing Yunzhao? Pak Yuan asked with uncertainty. Her eyebrows were similar, but after so many years, the little girl in his memory had already grown into a slender and elegant young lady. It was possible that he had mistaken her for someone else. Do you need me to show you my ID? Jing Yunzhao laughed. Seeing that he was still doubting her, he simply showed the student ID around his neck to him. You really are. Pak Yuan stared at it a few times with his eyes wide open. He paused and said, Actually, I have thought about what you said, but what I need to do now is to reassure my parents. When I came out today, my parents were still worried that I would get into an accident, so they kept reminding me, Pak Yuan said and then closed his mouth. It was better not to let Jing Yunzhao, this young lady, know about these troublesome things. Actually, there are many ways to reassure your parents. Uncle Bai, you are talented and capable, so why worry about not being able to find a job? Also, speaking of jobs, I have one. I was just afraid that you wouldn't believe me. Jing Yunzhao took a sip of water and looked at him. Pak Yuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This little girl's tone was quite big. She wasn't even an adult yet, so how could she recommend a job to him? Chapter 154. Pak Yuan smiled. Regardless of whether what Jing Yunzhao said was true or not, he had to admit that today was the only time he was in a good mood since he came back. He didn't feel so depressed. It's easy to find a job, but I don't want to be ordered around by others anymore. To tell you the truth, I worked hard for so many years, but in the end, I was stabbed in the back by my own boss. It doesn't feel good. Pak Yuan replied simply. Then what if I let you be the CEO? Jing Yunzhao asked casually. Bai Yuan's character was definitely able to withstand the test. He had enough work experience. If it wasn't for the fact that he was previously suppressed by others, he would have already stood out. Moreover, even if he had nothing, he was still able to start from scratch. It could be seen that he had courage and a decisive personality. At present, she was still young. It was impossible for her to start her own company and cover everything. After being reborn, she couldn't only rely on her 30 million yuan. She had space and time. If she didn't make good use of them, then her rebirth would be meaningless to her. Jing Yunzhao's words almost made Pak Yuan choke. After coughing a few times, he looked at her suspiciously. "Little Jing, are you kidding?" In the beginning, someone in the capital hired him as a vice president with a high salary. However, his original company was not small. Those companies who were interested in him didn't want to offend a person who couldn't afford to offend. In other cities, he didn't have any connections. Although he didn't need to start over, it was basically impossible for him to get a high position. Therefore, he returned to his hometown to relax. "Uncle Bai, I actually want to start a company, but as you can see, I'm still young and there aren't many things I can do. That's why I need someone to help me, and I believe in you." Jing Yunzhao's face was stern and serious as she continued, "The starting capital is 30 million. After Jing Yunzhao finished speaking, Pak Yuan's expression became strange. After not seeing her for so long, Jing Yunzhao. Was she crazy? But it didn't seem like it. She said it as if it was true. Except for the tone, everything was normal. If that was the case, could it be true? 30 million yuan was not a small amount, especially in a small place like Huaning County. It was almost a sky-high price. It was more than enough to start a small company. Let alone 30 million yuan, even if he was given 500,000 yuan, he could do it well. It was just that the starting point was different, so the speed of development would naturally be very different. Pak Yuan couldn't explain his mood at this time. He thought for a moment. "Little Jing, let's not talk about whether you have 30 million yuan or not. Even if you have it, it doesn't seem appropriate to give it to someone you haven't seen for many years. Will you run away?" Jing Yunzhao's eyebrows raised and smiled. Bai Yuan suddenly choked in his heart. The money was not small, but he was not the kind of person who would betray his trust for money. If he was, then what was the difference between him and his wife who had been run away from him? What if? Pak Yuan's face was full of inquiry. "I said I believe you. Don't doubt the person you use. I'm young, but I believe in my own vision. Even if I make a mistake, it's only a loss of 30 million yuan for me, but it's a loss of an opportunity for you. Besides, if I can find a way to earn 30 million yuan, then I have the ability to earn another 30 million yuan." Jing Yunzhao's voice was powerful and resonating. Her words made Pak Yuan feel that she really had so much money. However, his heart was inexplicably much more comfortable. Jing Yunzhao was just a little girl, but she could be so open-minded. How could he, a man, be unable to pick up and let go? "It seems that you know about my matter. Anyway, thank you for comforting me." Before he finished speaking, Jing Yunzhao directly dialed the bank's customer service. The balance in the card was clearly heard. Then, she said directly, "Uncle Bai, I'm not comforting you. I have the money, but I'm lacking you. As long as you're willing, we can cooperate at any time." Chapter 155. Pak Yuan's face was stiff, and he was still in shock. Really? Pak Yuan suddenly felt like he was in a trance. After working for so many years, he hadn't even earned the full payment for his house in the capital. But Jing Yunzhao, a 15-year-old girl, had actually taken out 30 million. Although Jing Yunzhao appreciated him at this time, the feeling of being appreciated by a child in his eyes was very strange. Jing Yunzhao nodded. "Then, what kind of business do you want to do?" Pak Yuan was very perturbed. It was Jing Yunzhao who was soliciting him, but why did he feel like he was fooling a little girl? Let's start with the wine industry. I have some wine recipes and can also provide the raw materials. I need you to prepare the other aspects, Jing Yunzhao said. She had thought of many ways for future development, but after thinking about it, she still felt that wine was the most suitable. The raw materials could be provided from her space for the time being, and she could cultivate the raw materials base after it grew bigger. Moreover, there were some basic wine recipes in the third piece of spirit jade she absorbed. It wasn't much, but it was enough for now. Moreover, there were even records of those wines. It could be seen that those were the treasures collected by the ancestor, and the taste was definitely not ordinary. Of course, what she originally wanted to open the most was still a pharmaceutical factory, but medicine was for the people's livelihood, and the threshold was very high. It was difficult for a new company like theirs without any background and inheritance to achieve results. Moreover, new drugs couldn't be recognized by the public in a short time. However, since she had inherited the medical skills of the ancestor, it was inevitable that she would be involved in the pharmaceutical industry in the future. But first, she had to establish a firm foothold in the medical field. Pak Yuan's heart trembled, and he drank some water to suppress the shock. After a long time, he was finally able to talk to Jing Yunzhao normally. The more they talked, the more they realized the practicality of this matter. Pak Yuan also had some ambitions and aspirations, and he had never thought of staying in Huaning County for the rest of his life. Now, Jing Yunzhao gave him not only an opportunity but also a challenge. However, as the two of them continued their discussion, Pak Yuan's pressure increased exponentially. Jing Yunzhao was a hands-off boss. Because of her age, she needed Pak Yuan to temporarily replace her in managing all the company's affairs. And in the initial stage, from personnel to company site selection to factory construction, there was nothing that he didn't do by himself. How about this? I'll go back and choose the location of the public, private, and factory first. I'll let you confirm it after I've chosen. I'll also send you the recruitment materials for you to take a look at later. The decision is still in your hands, Pak Yuan finally said. He had never thought of threatening the emperor to command his vassals. After all, although Jing Yunzhao was young, she did not look like a puppet at all. She had her own opinions, and the words she said hit the nail on the head. She was very shrewd. Jing Yunzhao agreed, and the money was naturally transferred to Pak Yuan's hands. However, the expenses would naturally be reported to her later, so she wasn't worried about this. Coming out of the small restaurant, Pak Yuan looked at Jing Yunzhao, who was still as relaxed as before. He wanted to cry, but no tears came out. It had only been a short while, and his life had changed. And after solving the problem in her heart, Jing Yunzhao felt more relaxed. As it was getting late, she went back to school directly, completely forgetting that there was still someone waiting in the hospital. In the hospital, Li Xiaoyun's face was gloomy. When he saw the meal for 2 sent by his staff, his resentment made the whole ward gloomy. I was wondering why you called me over in such a hurry. So it's because you were abandoned. Du Lin grinned, and his heart was full of pride. It had always been Li Xiaoyun who stood others up. It turned out that he also had a day like this. Accompany me to school in the afternoon, Li Xiaoyun looked at him with contempt and snorted casually. Chapter 156. Du Lin agreed, but seeing that Li Xiaoyun wasn't in a hurry, he decided to accompany this eccentric young master to have a meal first. At this moment, something big was happening in the school. However, this big thing had nothing to do with Jing Yunzhao. When the students saw that Jing Yunzhao, who was once the female lead of the rumors, had become a bystander, their hearts were filled with mixed feelings. Ever since Tang Zihua transferred over, he immediately became a popular figure in the school. With his sickly face and luxurious cars following him wherever he went, he undoubtedly attracted the attention of the students. Even if he wanted to keep a low profile, he just wouldn't allow it, causing the two of them to become more and more eye-catching. And at noon today, he just was kidnapped. The person who broke the news was Chao Hongye. According to Chao Hongye, she brought He Jiaxi to walk around Huaning County today. In the end, He Jiaxi walked too fast, and when she turned around, she couldn't find her. She only found He Jiaxi's bag nearby. She originally thought that He Jiaxi was joking with her, but when she went to class, she found out that He Jiaxi didn't go home with the driver first. At this moment, the driver was also anxious because he couldn't find her at all. Only then did he hurriedly inform the teacher. Chao Hongye cried like a pear blossom bathed in rain. Looking at Tang Zihua, she said with all her might, "It's all my fault. Even if Jiaxi dislikes me for walking too slow, I should still keep up with her. But I really didn't expect this to happen. Tang Zihua, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. I thought she was playing with me again and wanted me to walk back with the things she bought." Jing Yunzhao's eyes darkened. Chao Hongye kept on blaming herself and even kept on apologizing. But in reality, she always pushed the blame onto He Jiaxi, and even acted as if she had been wronged. Chao Hongye had almost used this trick too many times. Evil people will naturally be dealt with by evil people. Jing Yunzhao inexplicably felt that Chao Hongye and He Jiaxi were really a pair of natural enemies. Ever since He Jiaxi transferred over, Chao Hongye became He Jiaxi's errand girl. Because of her unusual hearing, she could often hear He Jiaxi threatening Chao Hongye in private. Those words were very interesting. Now, if someone were to say that He Jiaxi's disappearance had nothing to do with Chao Hongye, Jing Yunzhao would be the first to not believe it. The classroom was very noisy. Teacher Qi had already called the police and the class was delayed. Jing Yunzhao took advantage of the chaos to give Hua Zhe a call. The answer she received did not surprise her at all. As expected, this matter was related to Chao Hongye, and it was even more related to Chao Xing who had just come out. This afternoon, Chao Hongye took He Jiaxi to wander around the town's business district for a long time. When He Jiaxi wanted to find the restroom, she pointed to a remote road and took the opportunity to pretend that she was too tired and stayed in the same place. Meanwhile, Chao Xing, who was ready, helped He Jiaxi into the car. Chao Hongye and Chao Xing had met last night. Their meeting and Chao Xing's actions had all been captured by Hua Zhe. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Jing Yunzhao wasn't prepared to let Chao Hongye off this time. It was just that if he didn't let Chao Hongye fall to the bottom of the valley again, he felt that he would be letting down her meticulous plan. At this moment, Jing Yunzhao only asked Hua Zhe to send over the photos. Not long after, the police also arrived. However, just when everyone thought that the matter had gotten out of hand, He Jiaxi suddenly appeared in the school, catching everyone unprepared. At this moment, He Jiaxi was still wearing beautiful branded clothes. Her long ponytail swayed in the air. Her footsteps were a little strange and her complexion wasn't too good. What's going on? Didn't they say that she was kidnapped? The police had just seen the photos and could still recognize her. Tang Zihua had even contacted the He family's parents. He Jiaxi swept a glance at the police and didn't care about them at all. She turned around and angrily said, "Who was kidnapped?" Chapter 157. Jing Yunzhao could confirm that something was wrong with He Jiaxi, but she went back and exonerated Chao Xing. Clearly, something wasn't right. He Jiaxi, Chao Hongye said that you mysteriously disappeared while you were shopping. Right now, you've only returned to school after a period of class. What happened? Teacher Chi asked in a rather pertinent manner. He Jiaxi's expression was a bit ugly, but she knew that this old man had a strict temper. She clenched her teeth and said, Teacher, I got separated from Chao Hongye. I'm not familiar with the roads in Huaning County. When I was resting, I forgot to take my bag. My money and phone were in my bag, so I was delayed until now. When he Jiaxi finished speaking, a trace of ridicule and disdain flashed across Chao Hongye's eyes. Jiaxi, I'm really sorry. I thought you were kidnapped. Teacher Chi and the others were worried that something happened to you, so they called the police. Are you really okay? Chao Hongye asked gently. He Jiaxi glared at her in disgust. If it wasn't for her walking slowly, how could she have been kidnapped by the criminals? Now, she had a stomach full of anger, but she couldn't tell the police. Otherwise, she would never be able to get close to Tang Zihua. He Jiaxi twisted her uncomfortable body. Seeing Tang Zihua's sullen expression, she restrained her emotions and turned to the police and the others. Police uncle, I've troubled you to make this trip. I'm really fine. Thank you for everyone's concern. When she said this, many people breathed a sigh of relief. Teacher Cheek shook his head helplessly and apologized to the police, expressing that he would be more cautious when calling the police in the future. When the police left, the class was in an uproar. With a slap, He Jiaxi directly slapped Xiao Hongya and said angrily, "Who told you to call the police? Meddling in other people's business. I even suspect that you deliberately threw me aside to embarrass me." The students were suddenly shocked, speechless. He Jiaxi's temper had always been overbearing, but she always restrained herself in front of Tang Zihua and pretended to be in sync with the students. What happened today? Tang Zihua was still here, but she was being rough with Chao Hongye. Jiaxi, how can you say that? I was carrying so many things, I couldn't walk fast. Chao Hongye covered her face and said, feeling wronged. He Jiaxi was even angrier. What did Chao Hongye mean? Was she trying to prove to others that she had abused her? Even though those things were indeed bought by her, and she did have the intention of tormenting Chao Hongye, she hadn't even opened her mouth today, and Chao Hongye had already expressed that she wanted to help her carry the things. In short, she was the one who took the initiative. He Jiaxi, it's time for class. Tang Zihua glanced at her, his eyes somewhat helpless and cold. He more or less had some understanding of He Jiaxi. The He family's business was passable, and with the Tang family's help over the years, He Jiaxi more or less had the temperament of a young miss. Even if she made a mistake, she would push the blame to others. However, in the end, she was the daughter of the He family. He would not reprimand her in front of so many classmates. But to He Jiaxi, at this moment, her heart was already extremely flustered. Although Tang Zihua didn't say it, how could she not tell? It was obvious that he was blaming her for throwing a tantrum. He even showed a somewhat courteous attitude towards Chao Hongye. Why? Chao Hongye's father was merely a, thinking up to this point, He Jiaxi suddenly smiled in her heart. Chao Hongye dared to badmouth her in front of Tang Zihua, then she'd have a good time later. Under the gossipy atmosphere, the students reluctantly attended 2 periods of class. After 2 periods of class, as the student's parent, Chao Weiman directly appeared at the classroom door. Jing Yunzhao looked at him and was astonished. Chao Weiman's face was haggard, and his complexion was still a little red. One look and you could tell that the effects of the alcohol hadn't passed yet. Chapter 158. Chao Hongye walked towards the door under everyone's gazes, her face full of embarrassment. When Jing Yunzhao saw Chao Weiman's fawning smile as he looked at He Jiaxi, he immediately understood. Now, Chao Hongye and He Jiaxi were dog-eat-dog. As soon as Chao Hongye walked out of the door, Chow Weimin rushed up and slapped her. In an instant, 5 red finger marks were engraved on Chow Hongye's face. Chow Weimin didn't let it go and kicked her again. He pointed at Chow Hongye's nose and scolded, "You wastrel. What bad things did you do outside? Who did you offend? You caused my factory to close down." Jing Yunzhao frowned. Chow Weimin's factory closed down. When did this happen? Was it He Jiasi? Jing Yunzhao turned to look at He Jiasi and discovered that she also had a surprised expression on her face. That expression couldn't have been faked, and there was no need to fake it. But in his previous life, Chow Weimin's factory had always been fine. Why did it suddenly close down now? Dad, are you crazy? Who could I have offended? Chow Hongye cried out, feeling wronged. But in her heart, she blamed this matter on He Jiasi. She even thought about how she should get Chao Xing to do something. Chao Xing couldn't possibly not do something that was mutually beneficial. Chow Weimin's attitude was cold. He didn't believe Chow Hongye's words at all. He turned to look at Jing Yunzhao and directly dragged Chow Hongye in front of Jing Yunzhao. He said, "Yunzhao, Dad's factory has closed down. I really don't have any money. If this goes on, it'll be difficult to support your siblings in school. Can you give me that ginseng of yours?" Jing Yunzhao snorted disdainfully. He still hadn't given up on the ginseng. Seeing that Jing Yunzhao didn't speak, Chow Weimin continued, "Yunzhao, even if you cut ties with our family, if it wasn't for me, would you have been able to grow up peacefully? If you've already eaten the ginseng, Dad won't force you. But Dad remembers that you have a piece of jade on your neck. Dad bought it for you when you were young to keep you safe. How about you give that to Dad for emergencies?" When Jing Yunzhao heard this, he laughed at Chow Weimin's shameless attitude. Did he buy it to keep himself safe? Chow Weimin had always been stingy, so how could he buy jade just for her? This jade gourd belonged to her space. Because it was passed down from the ancestors of the Jing family, it looked a little old. On the surface, it didn't look very precious. In addition, Yi Qin had intended to use her to shield Chow Hongye and her brother from evil spirits, so she didn't dare to touch the things on her. Otherwise, even if this jade gourd wasn't a fake, it wouldn't have been kept until now. Closing the book, Jing Yunzhao glanced at him. "Are you threatening me now? Yunzhao, how can you talk to your father like that? Is Daddy threatening you? I'm the one who bought this. Can't I take it back? However, jade is spiritual. If you really don't want to return it to me, then you can exchange it with ginseng." Chow Weimin chattered. He did not know who the factory he had invested in had offended. All of a sudden, all the customers did not dare to come to him. A batch of goods was all in his hands. He was in charge of the investment and did not understand the operation of the factory. He only knew that in a short 3 days, everything was gone. He went to find his partner to settle the score, but the other party was even more shameless than him. He insisted that he had offended someone. But no matter how he thought about it, he couldn't find any opponent. In the end, he felt that it was possible that Chow Hongye did not serve Miss He well, which caused him to suffer an undeserved calamity. Chow Weimin was so angry that he wished he could strangle Chow Hongye to death. He even hated his wife who had passed away. If that woman had taught Chow Hongye well, how could such a thing have happened? Chapter 159. The only thing Chow Weimin could do now was to raise money. All these years, he was used to getting money without working. Now, other than drinking, he didn't know how to do anything else. It was even more impossible for him to rely on his own ability to earn money. Now, he could only raise enough money to continue investing. Only then would he have the ability to turn things around in the future. All these years, he had saved up some money, but it wasn't like a few years ago. That little bit of money didn't catch anyone's eye. Under such circumstances, when he thought of the ginseng on Jing Yunzhao's body, he felt his blood boil. As for the broken jade on her body, he didn't take a fancy to it. After all, if that jade was valuable, Jing Yunzhao's biological parents wouldn't have left it on her body and thrown her away. Jing Yunzhao had seen Qiao Weimin's shamelessness before. Seeing him shamelessly smiling flatteringly at the side, Jing Yunzhao only felt nauseous. People need face, trees need bark. Qiao Weimin, you actually have the nerve to say that you bought that jade. That thing was obviously left to me by my biological parents. It even has my surname engraved on it. There should be a limit to your nonsense. Jing Yunzhao coldly snorted and said, "Please get out of my sight." The flattery on Qiao Weimin's face instantly collapsed. He glared at Jing Yunzhao and said, "Who do you think you are? Back then, if it wasn't for our Qiao family picking you up, you would have died on the streets long ago. With your temper, your cheap temper. You don't know how to respect the old and love the young. You don't know how to be filial to your elders. No wonder you were thrown on the streets." Jing Yunzhao coldly stood up. He insulted Qiao Hongye. She didn't care. She was his biological daughter. How he wanted to torment her had nothing to do with her. But if he provoked her, she couldn't. "Qiao Weimin, I've already tolerated you enough." Jing Yunzhao finished speaking and kicked him. The surrounding students didn't have time to react. They saw Qiao Weimin fall to the ground, and even Qiao Hongye was thrown to the side. Jing Yunzhao's expression was cold. His eyes were extremely dark, as if he wanted to kill someone. That aura directly attacked the bottom of everyone's heart. Who would dare to stop him? In the past, they had thought that Jing Yunzhao was cold and aloof. But at this moment, everyone was glad that Jing Yunzhao was only cold and aloof. If she was a little more impulsive and irritable, those who had spoken ill of Jing Yunzhao would probably have been beaten beyond recognition by her. After Jing Yunzhao's kick, he picked up the desk and threw it at Qiao Weimin. The desk was not heavy, but it was impossible for others to pick it up with one hand. Jing Yunzhao's strength made everyone's hearts tremble. Xiao Haiqing's mouth was slightly agape. The moment she saw the desk fly over, she was no less shocked than anyone else. She knew quite a lot of people outside the school and had fought quite a few times. However, she knew her limits. At most, she would cause some superficial wounds to others. She would never dare to go so far. If this desk was really smashed, it might kill someone. However, this thought disappeared in the blink of an eye because this colossus just happened to land beside Qiao Weimin, almost brushing past him. But it scared Qiao Weimin so much that he almost fainted. That wasn't all. Just when Qiao Weimin thought that he had dodged a bullet, his bones were instantly pulled up. With a "thpa" sound, he was thrown to the ground after a 360-degree spin. He only felt that his spine was about to break. Jing Yunzhao's martial arts training these days wasn't for nothing. Although it hadn't reached the stage of leaping onto roofs and vaulting over walls, it was definitely enough to teach this kind of good-for-nothing a lesson. However, she wasn't stupid enough to beat Qiao Weimin until his limbs were broken or seriously injured. It was just a matter of how painful it was. Even if she went to the hospital for a few checkups later, there wouldn't be any major problems. Chapter 160. Jing Yunzhao's series of actions didn't even take a minute. The students were all hiding together in fear, afraid that Jing Yunzhao would accidentally bring disaster upon them. Because it was between classes and the teachers were not there, the students did not have time to find the teachers. They did not even dare to. Qiao Weimin lay on the ground and howled a few times. Jing Yunzhao did not seem to see his pain and said coldly, "You are not dead yet. What are you howling for?" If I hear a little bit of sound coming out of your mouth again, I will let you scream as much as you want. After that, Xiao Weimin immediately shut up. He didn't know when Jing Yunzhao had become so strong. Even a grown man wouldn't be able to execute those moves so smoothly just now. Looking at her, how could he still dare to provoke her? Get out! Jing Yunzhao snorted and said again. After saying that, everyone's tense nerves suddenly relaxed a little. Xiao Weimin was even more relieved. He awkwardly got up from the ground and staggered out. However, he happened to bump into someone at the door and was kicked aside by the other party in disdain. This fierce kick made the students worried again and looked up at the person. In an instant, the girls all widened their eyes and their faces were somewhat red. They only saw that the person was slender and his head was wrapped in several layers of gauze. Under the gauze, black and thick eyebrows were like sharp swords. A pair of eyes were slightly raised and seemed to have a smile. However, for some reason, it made people feel as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. His appearance was more handsome than a woman's. The corners of his mouth were slightly curved and his thin lips were indifferent. He did not seem to care who was kicked by him. He went straight to Jing Yunzhao and looked at her from head to toe. Why didn't you come to see me at noon? I have some private matters. Jing Yunzhao was immersed in the joy of meeting Pak Yuan at noon and indeed forgot about this person. Li Xiaoyun snorted. Next time, you can call me and tell me if you have something. Don't make me worry. Jing Yunzhao nodded. They got along very well these past few days. She gradually understood this man's temperament. He didn't have any bad intentions towards her. He was narcissistic and arrogant. As long as she went along with him, Li Xiaoyun's attitude would definitely be unbelievably good. Sure enough, after Jing Yunzhao expressed his cooperation, his originally unhappy expression immediately became much better. He turned to look at his classmates, as if he didn't see their panic. He revealed a gentlemanly smile and said in a strange tone, Our Yunzhao likes to be quiet. If he's a little grumpy sometimes, then it must be someone else's fault. Since someone else has made a mistake, then it doesn't matter if he fights. Xiao Haiqing's eyes lit up. That's right. Furthermore, that's because it didn't fall into my hands. Li Xiaoyun's expression turned cold, causing everyone's heart to skip a beat. They couldn't help but feel a chill. A handsome man was indeed pleasing to the eye, but Li Xiaoyun had an aura that kept people away. At this moment, his eyes seemed to be filled with killing intent, causing people to feel a chill in their hearts. Even for Jing Yunzhao, this was the first time she saw Li Xiaoyun like this. However, she was worried that he would say something scary, so she hurriedly said, Class is about to start. All right then, this young master will go find some fun. Li Xiaoyun's brows relaxed, and he lifted his feet to leave. However, when he saw Jing Yunzhao's desk lying on the floor, his face sank. In the next second, he swept his gaze around and directly moved Xiao Hongye's desk over. He threw all the messy things on the floor and placed the desk in front of Jing Yunzhao. He patted it. It's a little dirty, but I'll make do with it for today. As he spoke, he glanced at Xiao Hongye. His eyes were full of threat, scaring Xiao Hongye so much that she immediately shrank back. Seeing Xiao Hongye's frightened look, Li Xiaoyun smiled in satisfaction and left. Following his departure, someone heard Xiao Weimin's wailing. A bold student ran out to take a look, only to see another person who came with Li Xiaoyun dragging Xiao Weimin all the way to a car parked outside the school. They also remembered that car. It seemed to have been parked there for 2 periods. Chapter 161. Hearing someone mention it, Jing Yunzhao found out that Li Xiaoyun was already here, but he was waiting outside and only appeared when he saw Xiao Weimin. His mood was a bit strange, but he had to admit that Li Xiaoyun was indeed loyal. This is my uncle's class, so I have to clean it up. Class monitor Qi Diyong cautiously glanced at Jing Yunzhao in the silence of the crowd, as if he was afraid of angering Jing Yunzhao. Seeing that she didn't have any reaction, he cleaned up the debris on the table and moved the unused table to Qiao Hongye's seat. As for Jing Yunzhao, although he occupied Qiao Hongye's original table, he didn't dare to move. Jing Yunzhao's cool and unrestrained actions just now still left a lingering fear in his heart. However, although the students were afraid, after a while, when they thought about it, their hearts were more or less filled with admiration and admiration. They only felt that Jing Yunzhao's actions were like a scene that only appeared in TV dramas, decisive and relieving. On the other hand, He Jiaxi was irritated. She was the one who secretly informed Qiao Weiman to harshly reprimand Qiao Hongye and Jing Yunzhao. This Qiao Weiman naturally didn't dare to slack off in order to curry favor with her and quickly arrived at school. However, she didn't expect this man to be so useless. After causing a ruckus for half a day, he only gave Qiao Hongye a slap and didn't take advantage of Jing Yunzhao at all. He was even beaten up by Jing Yunzhao to such an extent. Also, what was the matter with that man who suddenly appeared? He looked like he was full of smiles, but she always felt that his gaze was as if he wanted to eat someone. Just now, even she was intimidated. Moreover, she still had some understanding of those clothes. That man's clothes looked simple and ordinary, but from top to bottom, there wasn't a single piece of cheap goods. If this wasn't Huaning County, she couldn't help but suspect that this man was from some big family. At this moment, feeling the students' fearful and worshipful gazes towards Jing Yunzhao, He Jiaxi gritted her teeth so hard that the roots of her teeth were about to break. She had been in Huaning County for so long, but she had never seen anyone treat her so eagerly. Brother Zihua, that man just now seemed to be very nice to Jing Yunzhao. He Jiaxi whispered. Tang Zihua glanced at her. Don't worry about Jing Yunzhao. For the past few days, Jing Yunzhao hadn't checked his pulse every day. She had also distanced herself from him a lot. He knew in his heart that it was definitely because of He Jiaxi's previous words that made her vigilant. Jing Yunzhao had a very comfortable temperament. After getting along with her, he wanted to be friends with her even more. But now that He Jiaxi had made such a fuss, Jing Yunzhao had already given him enough face by not falling out with him. He Jiaxi pouted, feeling very wronged. However, this was just the beginning. That night, right after school, He Jiaxi received a call. A familiar male voice came through the phone, causing He Jiaxi's entire face to turn red. Avoiding the crowd, He Jiaxi bellowed furiously, "What are you trying to do?" It was Chao Xing on the other end of the line. At this moment, Chao Xing's mood was pretty good. Qiao Hongye was much more obedient than before, and she had actually helped him come up with a good idea. At this moment, when he heard this rich family's young Mrs. Delicate shout, he laughed lewdly. "What do you think I want to do? Didn't we have a good time doing it at noon?" He Jiaxi's eyes were completely red, like a little lion that was about to explode. However, this lion's claws weren't sharp enough. She quickly compromised and said somewhat helplessly, "Don't you just want money? I'll give you money, 100,000. 100,000. I've already inquired about your He family. What is 100,000 to you? This time, I don't want much, just 1,000,000. Give me 1,000,000 to play with first. If you don't do as I say, at worst, I'll just send it to your childhood sweetheart to take a look. Let's see if their family will still want a broken shoe like you." Chapter 162. Chao Xing's words were like a knife digging into He Jiaxi's heart, making her whole body tremble. This matter could not be leaked out. Otherwise, even if Tang Zihua fell in love with her in the future, the Tang family would no longer acknowledge her existence. Even if old Master Tang cared for the He family in every possible way, once it involved Tang Zihua, old Master Tang would not have any compromise. 1 million was not a small sum, however, as long as she asked, her parents would still satisfy her. After all, the future of the He family depended on her. I can give you 1 million, but after you take the money, you have to return the video to me. You're not allowed to speak of this matter, or else I'll kill you. He Jiaxi gritted her teeth. Chao Xing sneered, somewhat impatient, I know, transfer the money to my card first. After he finished speaking, he hung up. At this time, Chao Hongye was sitting beside Chao Xing. It was her first time doing such a big thing, so she was inevitably nervous. However, when she heard He Jiaxi's compromise, she couldn't help but be delighted. Chao Jit, we agreed, we'll each take half, bitch. Chao Xing slapped her, are you still qualified to talk terms with me? I, Chao Xing, have helped you so many times in vain, but you hit me when I'm down at the most crucial time. Now that I'm out, you're sticking to me. Do you think I'll believe your flowery words? Chao Hongye, it's not the first time we've dealt with each other. How can I not understand you? Chao Xing pinched her face and leaned closer. This time, I won't be so stupid as to be fooled by you again. I've already recorded all the words you said to persuade me to kidnap He Jiaxi. If you dare to make trouble again, when I'm caught later, we'll both die together. After he finished speaking, Chao Hongye revealed a frightened expression. In the end, she was still a little young. When Chao Xing came out, she was only left with panic and fear. In order to make Chao Xing happy, she directly exposed He Jiaxi. After persuading him for a long time, Chao Xing finally agreed. However, she didn't expect that Chao Xing actually came prepared. Seeing Chao Hongye's desperate look, Chao Xing's heart immediately felt refreshed. He had raped He Jiaxi, so one more wouldn't make much of a difference. Chao Hongye, this girl, he had long taken a fancy to her. If he didn't properly torment her now, could he still be considered a man? Chao Xing directly pressed Chao Hongye under his body. Very quickly, in the crowded room, a whimpering sound could be heard. Chao Hongye never dreamed that she would be eaten clean by Chao Xing, this hooligan. Everything was going downhill. It was as if everything was against her. It was getting worse and worse. It shouldn't be like this. What Chao Hongye didn't know was that all of her actions were being recorded by someone. Now, there was a complete copy in Jing Yunzhao's computer. Even if she hadn't fallen into Chao Xing's trap, she wouldn't have been able to escape the evidence in Jing Yunzhao's hands sooner or later. On the way back to the neighborhood, Jing Yunzhao was once again blocked by Chao Weimin. But this time, he wasn't looking for trouble with her. Instead, he stood in front of her with a bruised nose and swollen face, crying and crying, I was wrong. I was wrong, Yunzhao, please ask that man to let me go. I promise I won't find trouble with you in the future. Please ask him to let me go, I really can't take it anymore. The other 3 people who came with Jing Yunzhao all looked at him in astonishment. Hearing Chao Weimin's words, Jing Yunzhao could also guess that the injuries on his face were caused by Li Xiaoyun's men. However, Jing Yunzhao would rather believe that there were ghosts in this world than believe Chao Weimin's promise. He was just admitting defeat after suffering a loss for a while. After a few days, who knew how righteous he would be again? Get lost. A good dog doesn't block the way. Hitting people was also addictive. Jing Yunzhao didn't even frown as he kicked him. Chapter 163. Chao Weimin's legs were trembling. After being kicked by Jing Yunzhao, he rolled to the side like a ball. His eyes flashed with anger, but he immediately restrained himself and didn't dare to move. He couldn't believe that there was such a man in this world who didn't follow the rules. That man tied him to the car and beat him up without any explanation. The punches on his body were more painful than knives. It was as if there was a 1,000-pound rock pressing down on him. He couldn't breathe. He shouted and screamed in the car, thinking that the man would be worried about his life, but who knew that the man didn't care at all. The other person beside him even laughed and said that even if he really killed him, no one would stand up for him. He could clearly feel the man's murderous intent. At that moment, he felt as if he was in Azura hell. Waves of cold air came out, and that kind of oppression left him with only nervousness and fear. Even now, his mind was still filled with the despair of being choked by that man. Qiao Weiman's cowardly look made Jing Yunzhao's heart feel refreshed. Yunzhao, when did you become so powerful? Xiao Haiqing looked at Jing Yunzhao with a different gaze. It was as if she wanted to worship him. Suchu's eyes were filled with red hearts. She couldn't wait to study Jing Yunzhao from head to toe. If you ask me, I think you're more handsome when you're in class. Did you see the expressions of the other students? It was too exciting. Oh right, Qi Diyong even asked me later if my cousin knew how to beat people at home. Her legs were so nimble, could it be that she was from the Shaolin Temple? It's funny just thinking about it. Qi Diyong was their class monitor and Teacher Qi's nephew. He was unbelievably obedient in front of Teacher Qi. He was also a very honest and straightforward person. Although his grades were good, he was a fan of martial arts novels. He often talked about martial arts with a group of boys, but it was all just random gestures. In Suchu's eyes, compared to Jing Yunzhao's performance just now, it was all showy and impractical. You also learned martial arts from that mysterious old man? Xiao Haiqing asked with a face full of gossip. Jing Yunzhao nodded. Xiao Haiqing's eyes were shining. She looked at Jing Yunzhao as if she was the female lead in a movie. Gan Jinchen and Suchu didn't know about this mysterious old man. When they heard this, they were also interested and asked Jing Yunzhao to explain in detail. But thinking about the old man in her space, Jing Yunzhao's heart was moved. The old man kept saying that he was her ancestor, but until now, she still didn't know who her biological parents were. If her biological parents were dead, then there should have been other relatives, right? Why was she abandoned on the streets? If she met in the future, how should she treat them? Jing Yunzhao's mind was in a mess, but after a while, she couldn't help but laugh at herself. It was too early to think about these things now. Let nature take its course. Jing Yunzhao returned to the dormitory as usual. In the middle of the night, there was a pair of eyes staring at Jing Yunzhao's room with overflowing hatred. When Qiao Hongye thought about how she was forced by Qiao Xing, her heart felt like it was being bitten by thousands of ants. She was in so much pain that she wished she was dead. And all of this was because of Jing Yunzhao. If she didn't cause Qiao Xing to be arrested, she wouldn't have betrayed Qiao Xing, and Qiao Xing wouldn't hate her to the bone. There was also He Jiaxi. That slut treated her like a maid and thought she was a princess. But in the end, wasn't she also humiliated by hooligans? What qualifications did she have to get close to Tang Zihua? Qiao Hongye was thinking about Tang Zihua when she saw a familiar figure walking towards Jing Yunzhao's unit. If this person wasn't Tang Zihua, who else could it be? Chapter 164. Tang Zihua was dressed in sportswear and looked like he was very familiar with this area. One look and you could tell that it wasn't his first time here. Qiao Hongye's eyes widened. She couldn't help but call out, Tang Zihua. Tang Zihua turned around in shock, only to see a pair of hazy eyes staring at him in the darkness. The girl was wearing a small pink skirt, her long hair draped over her shoulders. Her face was a little haggard, as if she had suffered some grievances. Why are you here? Tang Zihua asked, puzzled. He was somewhat on guard. It hadn't been long since he transferred schools, but now he knew that Jing Yunzhao and Qiao Hongye didn't get along. These two weren't biological sisters, so it was hard not to be afraid of Qiao Hongye appearing in this neighborhood. Nowadays, most of the students in the school didn't like Qiao Hongye. He even heard others say that Qiao Hongye's private life was messy. Although these words were a little serious for a girl like Qiao Hongye, he didn't know why, but he always felt that Qiao Hongye made people uncomfortable. Qiao Hongye's heart was flustered for a moment, but she quickly regained her senses. She instantly became tear-stained. I am apologizing to sister on behalf of my father. Tang Zihua suddenly felt a little helpless. He suddenly understood why he didn't like this seemingly gentle Qiao Hongye. Too artificial. He had seen many girls like this. At the banquets held by the Tang family every year or at the banquets that they were invited to, there was no shortage of tear-stained girls. They obviously had healthy bodies, good looks, and were loved by their families, but they always looked like they had suffered a great grievance. It was as if they were telling the world how sad and pitiful her life was, as if everyone was bullying her. But what was the truth? They would always use this kind of attitude to gain sympathy and care from others. Therefore, compared to girls like this, he felt that those girls who were ostentatious were more natural. For example, Jing Yunzhao and that Xiao Haiqing by her side. Direct and straightforward. When speaking to them, there was no need to consider whether the other party's words had other meanings. Tang Zihua's gaze deepened. I don't think she needs your apology. After he finished speaking, he glanced at Qiao Hongye, secretly shook his head, and continued to walk upstairs. Qiao Hongye was unwilling to give up. She mustered up her courage and followed behind. When Suchu opened the door, she also hurriedly stepped into the room. However, as soon as they entered, Qiao Hongye's heart flashed with a bit of jealousy. This house was very spacious, with 3 rooms and a living room. It was very clean, and there was a faint fragrance in the room. There were also all kinds of books placed in the room. How lucky was Jing Yunzhao? Not only did she have a good relationship with Tang Zihua, but she also managed to make friends with Su Chu and Gan Jinchen, 2 roommates with decent statuses. Jing Yunzhao's current life was what she had imagined. When Su Chu saw Qiao Hongye, she immediately screamed, Qiao Hongye, what are you doing here? We don't welcome you here. Qiao Hongye lowered her head, the rims of her eyes reddening. She bit her lip and looked at Su Chu carefully. What did I do wrong to make you guys be so fierce to me? If Zihua can come, why can't I? Moreover, I really sincerely want to apologize to my sister. I won't steal her limelight in the future, and I won't make her unhappy again. Today's Qiao Hongye was 10,000 times more wrong than usual, especially after the physical and mental devastation she had just experienced. Her crying was extremely realistic, and her tears flowed down like a string. It simply stunned Su Chu. Gan Jinchen frowned and looked at Tang Zihua with a somewhat reproachful gaze. Tang Zihua was very innocent. Who knew that Qiao Hongye's skin would be so thick that she would actually break in with him? Chapter 165. Jing Yunzhao heard the commotion and came out of the space. As soon as he opened the door, he saw Qiao Hongye crying and complaining at the same time. Pursing his lips, Jing Yunzhao smiled faintly and walked to the sofa to sit down. He put an envelope on the coffee table and said faintly, since you're here, sit down. Qiao Hongye was stunned. She didn't expect Jing Yunzhao to be so easy to talk to this time. How could Qiao Hongye refuse? In order to show off in front of Tang Zihua, she immediately walked over. Thank you. Although we don't have the same surname, you'll always be my sister in my heart. We grew up together for so many years, and I've always treated you as family. Jing Yunzhao sneered and said, "Don't be in a hurry to claim kinship. Take a look at some things first." After saying that, Jing Yunzhao took out a photo. "This is a photo of you and Chao Xing preparing to steal from my room, right? This is a photo of you standing at the entrance of the alley to keep watch for Chao Xing." Jing Yunzhao continued to spread the photos on the coffee table and said, "This photo shows you following me. What about this one? You were complaining to your former friend outside the school. Let me think. At that time, you should be saying that everything was planned by me and that I'm wrongly accusing you, right?" When Jing Yunzhao took out these photos, Chao Hongya panicked. However, Jing Yunzhao didn't give her a chance to speak. Instead, he took out the next few photos and said unhurriedly, as if he was chatting casually, "Those little tricks of yours aren't that big of a deal. However, these photos seem a little different. In the first photo, Chao Hongya was stealing something. It was a beautiful hairpin. After that, there was a scene of her secretly destroying clothes in a clothing store. Of course, the more one looked at it, the more shocking it was. Especially towards the end, there were many consecutive photos of Chao Hongya and Chao Xing. She didn't know what the two of them were talking about. They met for a long time and then went to a rented apartment together. After that, they came out at the same time and went their separate ways. Chao Hongya and He Jiaxi went shopping. Then, in the surrounding scenes, He Jiaxi was kidnapped by Chao Xing. Chao Hongya originally thought that there wouldn't be any photos of Chao Xing's rented apartment, but who knew that Jing Yunzhao would take out another stack of photos. He narrowed his eyes and said, "These are all things that are not suitable for children. Do you still want to see them?" Tossing it onto the table, the naked scene was displayed in front of them. He was completely stunned. The same scene had two female leads. One was He Jiaxi, and the other was Chao Hongya. There were fewer photos of He Jiaxi, but it was obvious that she had been raped by Chao Xing. The few of them understood immediately. No wonder He Jiaxi would speak up for the kidnappers. She had obviously been threatened. "Why do you have these things?" Chao Hongya seemed to have gone crazy. She suddenly lost her previous obedience. How could she have known that Jing Yunzhao would suddenly be so polite to her because she had so many unsightly things in her hands? "Chao Hongya, you used to treat me like a fool and harmed me so many times behind my back, but I had no evidence and couldn't do anything to you. But people grow up. You have a good plan, and I have a ladder. What's so hard about finding someone to follow you just in case?" Jing Yunzhao said coldly. When Huazei's men found the rented apartment, they took advantage of Chao Xing's absence to install a small camera in the apartment. Jing Yunzhao originally didn't want to expose He Jiaxi's matter, but He Jiaxi just had to challenge her bottom line. After she hit Chao Weimin, a female classmate ran over and told her that Chao Weimin was found by He Jiaxi. That female classmate happened to overhear He Jiaxi's phone call in the bathroom and told her everything. He Jiaxi asked Chao Weimin to educate her and Chao Hongya. In addition, she hoped that Chao Weimin would find a good man for her. It would be better for her to stay at home and take care of her husband and children. For the sake of money, Chao Weimin had no bottom line. If she and Li Xiaoyun hadn't beaten Chao Weimin up, she believed that Chao Weimin would have done everything he could to make her lose her chastity on the way home from school today. So much so that the scene from her previous life could have happened again. Chapter 166. He Jiaxi provoked Chao Hongya and caused her to be bullied by Chao Xing, but her heart was twisted and she couldn't bear to see others live well. Originally, she thought that although this He family's eldest daughter was willful and mischievous, she was pitiful to be tormented like this. She wanted to let her off, but she insisted on making things difficult for her. Since that's the case, let's get rid of her in one fell swoop. Tang Zihua looked at the picture in shock, so shocked that he couldn't speak. He saw that Chao Hongye was no longer crying like before. Instead, she was somewhat deranged. Jing Yunzhao, what do you want? Can't you just let me off? Why must you treat me like this? Let you off? Then who will let me off? Chao Hongye, ask yourself honestly, have I ever given you a chance? You spread rumors so many times. I spent my first semester isolated by everyone. Who pitied me? Now that I don't want to tolerate it anymore, you say I won't let you off. Your selfishness and shamelessness have reached the point where it makes one's hair stand on end. Jing Yunzhao's cold voice directly retorted, causing Chao Hongye's weak momentum to crumble. I'm tired of dealing with your little tricks. Since you took the initiative to deliver yourself to me, then let's end it like this. I'll send these to the police later. But it's a pity, you're still underage. Jing Yunzhao said slowly. Chao Hongye's crime, logically speaking, should be taken in for education. However, Chao Hongye was smart and would definitely think of various ways to explain herself. Moreover, she was also one of the victims. In most cases, the guardian would be ordered to discipline her. With Chao Weiman's temper, he would probably expel Chao Hongye from school. What kind of life would Chao Hongye lead after she leaves school? Before she gets married, she would be like her previous life, imprisoned in the Chao family. Every day, she would do endless housework and work to earn money. The only difference was that Chao Hongye wouldn't be content with her lot. She would want to find a rich man to marry. Just like that year, when Chao Hongye let the adult Jiang Xia pursue her. Every step, she would follow the path of her previous life and return it to Chao Hongye bit by bit. Jing Yunzhao's clear eyes seemed to be emotionless at this time, which made Su Chu and the others panic. They didn't know what kind of life Jing Yunzhao had lived in the past, but they knew that it must have been very difficult. That was why she was so cold and unapproachable at such a young age. Chao Hongye really panicked this time. What should she do? If she could, she would kill Jing Yunzhao. But that was impossible. There were so many people around. What about the photos? If word got out, her life would be completely over. Rumors and facts were not the same thing. If it was just a rumor, she could defend herself and say that it was Jing Yunzhao who framed her. But if it was the truth, then she would become a street rat that everyone wanted to beat. She would not even have the chance to speak up for herself. Just like that, Jing Yunzhao quietly watched Chao Hongye's flustered, frightened, and at a loss for what to do. Her face remained calm. Sis, you can't hand it over to the police. If it falls into the police's hands, I will be beaten to death by my dad. Chao Hongye hurriedly begged. Dad told her to please Hijasi, but she secretly made a move against Hijasi. So she would be miserable. Dad would put all the blame for the factory's closure on her. Tang Zihua already didn't know what words to use to describe his current mood. He sat at the side in a daze, his mind in a mess. If the He family found out about this, Chao Hongye would not have a good ending. But the He family could easily find out who provided the evidence. At that time, Jing Yunzhao would have made an enemy for himself. Chapter 167. Jing Yunzhao's expression didn't change. Even after hearing Chao Hongye's pleas, she didn't show any signs of being moved. Even though her attitude might seem like she had a heart of stone in other people's eyes, Jing Yunzhao still couldn't help but want to suppress Chao Hongye's heart. Seeing her face covered in dirt and grime as she wailed in despair, she only felt joy in her heart. Jing Yunzhao hooked her lips. What does your death by Chao Weiman have to do with me? I only know that I can't let you live. Sister, how can you be like this? No matter what, we're still sisters who grew up together. Chow Hongye said unwillingly. My surname is Jing. Jing Yunzhao coldly said, declaring that she had no relationship with the Chow family. Such a resolute attitude made Chow Hongye's body and mind tremble. She lowered her head and looked at the scattered photos on the table, wishing she could burn them all. She had already begged Jing Yunzhao so humbly, but she still didn't care about her feelings. You've been like this since you were young, Jing Yunzhao, you still make me hate you. Chow Hongye's expression was sinister as she fiercely said this sentence. Her sudden sharp scream gave Suchu a fright. She couldn't help but pat her chest. This Chow Hongye was too scary. She was usually gentle and pleasant, but who knew that when a cornered dog would jump over a wall, her expression would be so frightening. Chow Hongye pointed at Jing Yunzhao as if her eyes were spitting fire. She stood up with a whoosh, you bastard. Even your parents don't know whose wild plaything you are. Do you think you're very powerful? Let me tell you, Jing Yunzhao, even if I was a petty thief, even if I found someone to rape Hijasi, so what? I'm still nobler than you. You were picked up by my mother. You should be my slave for the rest of your life, to be beaten and scolded as you please. Do you think that suppressing me makes you happy? But you'll suffer retribution sooner or later. You want to climb up the Tang family with your lowly life. Hijasi can't do it, so don't even think about it. After tearing apart Chow Hongye's hypocritical skin, her threatening appearance was immediately displayed in front of everyone. Tang Zihua's expression was ugly because he, Jing Yunzhao, had been misunderstood more than once. He didn't expect that Chow Hongye would still think that there was something going on between him and Jing Yunzhao. Moreover, such words actually came from the mouth of a girl. Jing Yunzhao was an orphan whose parents were unknown, but he never felt that Jing Yunzhao was inferior to others. This Chow family, if they hadn't adopted Jing Yunzhao back then, they might have let Jing Yunzhao off. The air seemed to have solidified. Suchu had never encountered such a situation before and was momentarily at a loss for words. However, she was afraid that Jing Yunzhao would be upset because of this, so she revealed an angry expression and felt pity for Jing Yunzhao. Gon Jinchen was the same, but he believed that Jing Yunzhao was calm enough and had the ability to solve the problem. Actually, you're the one who wants to climb up the social ladder of the Tang clan, right? After a while, a mocking voice suddenly sounded in the silent room. Jing Yunzhao spoke again, are you done scolding me? In my eyes, other than hooting a few words, you don't have any ability at all. Are you worthy of talking about nobility with me? I hate to be compared with animals the most. After Jing Yunzhao finished speaking, he reached out and arranged the photos. Other than these photos, there was actually a set of videos and a few copies. Now, as long as she sent a text, Huazei's people would immediately hand these things over to the police. She took out her phone, typed a message, and sent it out after confirming it. Cooperate well with the request for exaggeration. After all, if you're taken in and educated, how am I supposed to play? Jing Yunzhao glanced at her and handed a stack of envelopes to her. As for these, they contain your first time in your life. I'll give them to you as a souvenir. Chapter 168. Jing Yunzhao looked down at her. Under Chow Hongye's resentful gaze, he let Tang Zihua into her room to take his pulse and treat his illness. Chow Hongye's heart-wrenching scream came from outside. Her voice was crazy, scaring all the children in the building. Suchu glared at her fiercely and threatened, I'm going to tell the police that you're here. The next second, Chow Hongye ran away in a sorry state. She saw Jing Yunzhao's text, but she didn't know what Jing Yunzhao edited and didn't know who the text was sent to. So she wasn't sure if Jing Yunzhao had really called the police. So at this moment she was scared and worried, but she didn't know what to do. Run away. She didn't have any money on her, and she was young. If she ran away from Huaning County, she might not be left with a bright future. Find Chao Xing. Chao Hongye shook her head again. She definitely couldn't. Chao Xing would be alerted when the time came. Once both of them were caught, she wouldn't have the chance to defend herself anymore. After thinking about it, Chao Hongye still decided to return to school, hoping that Jing Yunzhao was just scaring her. Chao Hongye only returned to the dormitory at 10:00 in the morning. The girls in the dormitory naturally despised her to the extreme, but Chao Hongye didn't care about what these people thought. She tossed and turned in bed. In the middle of the night, the girls in the dormitory were woken up by knocking on the door. The teachers cooperated with a group of police officers and took Chao Hongye away in front of everyone's eyes. In order to fulfill their responsibilities, these teachers naturally asked about the situation. When they did, they were shocked to the extreme. In the morning, the whole school had already heard about it. As Chao Hongye's homeroom teacher, Teacher Chi was very sullen. He had taught students for dozens of years, and no one had ever committed a crime during his tenure, let alone a girl who looked gentle and demure on the surface. Moreover, with Chao Hongye's grades, she originally didn't have the qualifications to enter Class 1. She was completely pulled into Class 1 by the investor, the He family, for the sake of their daughter's playmate. At that time, he thought that this girl's grades were good, so he made an exception and accepted her. Who knew that she would ruin his many years of good reputation? Chao Xing was also arrested along with Chao Hongye. When Chao Xing re-entered the palace, as expected, Chao Hongye went back on her words. Chao Hongye claimed that she had been threatened by Chao Xing from start to finish. She displayed her acting skills and wrongly accused Chao Xing to the point that both man and God were indignant. This time, the crime was very serious. As the victim, he was, of course. Moreover, He Jiaxi and Chao Hongye were both minors, especially Chao Hongye, who wasn't even 16 years old yet. Rape and extortion, Chao Xing took a big tumble this time. By the time this case was completely settled, it was already more than a month later. As expected, Chao Hongye voluntarily withdrew from school. At the entrance of the campus, the He family's car had been waiting for a long time. However, it was different from before. They had changed to an ordinary driver and the car was not as luxurious as before. After all, she was no longer qualified to marry into the Tang family. The He family felt uncomfortable and treated her differently. Chao Hongye, you're really good. He Jiaxi looked at Chao Hongye, who had also left the school, her eyes full of hatred. After these days of torture, Chao Hongye was like a walking corpse. Her face and body were full of scars, all thanks to Chao Weimin. Chao Weimin's attitude was completely dependent on this Miss He. He Jiaxi, I admit that I've let you down. But do you think I sent those photos to the police? I'm not so stupid as to dig a hole for myself. It's all Jing Yunzhao's doing. How pitiful. Forget about me, but you, the daughter of a big family, actually couldn't beat a bastard and rush back to Ning City like a stray dog. How pitiful. Chao Hongye said coldly, too lazy to put on airs. Chapter 169. Chao Hongye's eyes were full of sarcasm, not restraining herself at all. In the past, she had to lower herself to He Jiaxi because of her father. But now, for money, her father didn't even want her anymore, scolding and beating her up. Since she suffered such a big grievance, then why should she give in to He Jiaxi? Apart from her family background being better than her, what else could He Jiaxi compare to her? He Jiaxi's heart was currently filled with hatred. She had suffered a loss and caused such a thing to happen, causing the He family's 10 years of planning to go up in smoke. Naturally, the He family had investigated a bit, but the result they received wasn't Jing Yunzhao, but a hoodlum. However, with Chao Hongya's explanation, she understood everything clearly. Jing Yunzhao must have bribed that hoodlum to do it on her behalf. Killing two birds with one stone, destroying two people. This Jing Yunzhao pretended to be virtuous, keeping a distance from Tang Zihua on the surface, but behind his back, he was actually so sinister. However, she wouldn't let Jing Yunzhao off, but she also wouldn't let Chao Hongya off. In the end, if Chao Hongya didn't sell her out, she wouldn't have been defiled by a hoodlum. Now that this matter had spread like wildfire in Huaning County schools, when she returned to Ning City, there would definitely be people investigating what she did in Huaning County. At that time, even if she had 10 mouths, she wouldn't be able to explain herself. No matter what, she couldn't stay in Ning City anymore. After she returned, she could only go abroad for a period of time and wait for the matter to die down before returning. As for Tang Zihua, he just clenched her teeth. If she couldn't have him, then Jing Yunzhao shouldn't think about it either. Even if she left, she still had ways to deal with the two of them. He just got into the car with hatred. The car sped off, quickly leaving Huaning County's boundary. Chao Hongya returned to Ning Town, but this matter had been stirred up for so long that it had already spread throughout the town. The people outside had spread rumors that Chao Hongya was vicious and sinister. Now, everyone was avoiding her. Chao Weimin despised this daughter of his for making him lose face and dragging down his future, so he was even more displeased with Chao Hongya. Even Chao Hongya's younger brother, Chao Zizhou, felt embarrassed and avoided her when he returned home on the weekends. Chao Hongya was responsible for taking care of Chao Weimin's basic necessities at home. Her pair of slender jade fingers had always been fair and tender, but after a few days, they had become slightly rough. Moreover, whenever she dressed up a little cuter and prettier, there would always be people calling her a vixen when she went out to buy groceries. There were even some ignorant children who would rush up and scratch her. A week later, Chao Hongya learned to be smarter and changed into Yi Qin's old clothes. Clothes make the man. Without her beautiful clothes, without her student temperament, and without the favorable impression of others, the current Chao Hongya looked like a sloppy old woman from afar. If it wasn't for her youthful face, no one would be able to recognize her if she was thrown into a crowd. If Jing Yunzhao saw the current Chao Hongya, he might not be able to help but sigh. Chao Hongya was walking the same path as in her previous life. The old clothes she was wearing now were worn by Jing Yunzhao in his previous life. The work she was doing was exactly the same as in her previous life. Even the insults she received were more or less the same. Harming others, harming oneself. In her previous life, she harmed others. In this life, the wheel of fortune had turned. While Chao Hongya was experiencing the tribulation of life, Jing Yunzhao's first year of high school classes were coming to an end. The final exams were approaching, and the work given to Pak Yuan had some improvement. Pak Yuan had chosen 4 or 5 factories. The locations were relatively clean and the area was also large. The land in the suburbs of Huaning County was not considered expensive. With Jing Yunzhao's current financial resources, there was basically no pressure. Out of the 4 factories, 2 of them were in the neighboring town. They were originally used for the wine business, so they could be used. However, Jing Yunzhao felt that the location was too remote and directly shook his head to reject it. Moreover, the factory area would definitely expand in the future. Those 2 factories in the town would not be beneficial for future development. Chapter 170. After much consideration, Jing Yunzhao finally settled on a place in Huaning County. It was located in a rather remote location, but fortunately, the location was big enough. As long as it was remodeled and the equipment purchased, it would be able to operate. More importantly, there were dormitories in the factory for the employees to work. There were many small factories in Huaning County, and there were even more people who relied on these factories for their livelihood. However, most of the factories liked to delay the payment of wages. Some people worked for a year and still might not be able to earn money. If it wasn't for the fact that it was close to home, no one would be willing to work like this. Jing Yunzhao didn't think of exploiting the people. When the factory started, other than setting the rules, the main thing was to establish his own reputation. The higher-ups were naturally happy to have another factory in the county. Therefore, Pak Yuan's follow-up went very smoothly. After various procedures were completed, the location of the company was also decided. However, according to Pak Yuan's idea, the headquarters was still set in Ning City. This way, the name would sound better. Anyway, the distance between Ning City and Huaning County wasn't far. It would only take a few hours by car. With Pak Yuan as a good helper, Jing Yunzhao was much more relaxed. These days, he could focus on preparing for the exam. Under the scorching sun, the students in the exam hall were sweating like rain. However, Jing Yunzhao was refreshed. It was inevitable that it created a relaxed atmosphere for the people around him. Jing Yunzhao's results were not unexpected. First in all subjects, first in total score. After experiencing Chao Hongye's incident, Teacher Qi finally revealed a gratified smile. After all, he had taught for decades. There were very few students who were so smart and so hardworking. In terms of learning, he maintained his ranking. In terms of medical skills, he improved very quickly. When the summer vacation just started, Jing Yunzhao had already absorbed 3 pieces. Currently, he was almost done absorbing the 6th piece of spirit jade. In the space, the old ancestors said that one shouldn't be greedy for too many spirit jades. However, she felt that her tolerance was stronger than expected. Other than the first time when she absorbed it, she felt a little uncomfortable. After that, the next few times were very smooth. Moreover, she felt like she wasn't full yet. After thinking about it for a while, Jing Yunzhao still decided to give it a try. Fresh blood dripped into the jade, and in an instant, the 2 pieces of spirit jade entered her mind at the same time. Jing Yunzhao only felt a buzzing sound in her mind, as if something had exploded. He tried his best to suppress this splitting headache. After a while, the tip of his nose became slightly hot, and 2 streams of blood flowed down. At the side, the little bug wiggled its body and jumped. The blood that dripped from Jing Yunzhao's nose immediately stained its body. The icy blue body shook violently, and the little bug immediately retreated back into the soil. After an unknown amount of time, Jing Yunzhao finally felt his headache get better. He sighed faintly in his heart. Fortunately, it was only 2 pieces. Otherwise, his head would have exploded. The ancestors' words were not without reason. In the future, it was better not to try such things again. However, after a while, Jing Yunzhao realized that after absorbing the 2 pieces of spirit jade at the same time, the contents were more vivid and easier to understand. It was as if the memories in the spirit jade were originally hers, and naturally merged with her. This kind of benefit made Jing Yunzhao feel a little conflicted. After thinking for a while, he secretly made up his mind. At most 2 pieces. For the sake of medical skills, he could endure the pain for the time being. Exhaling, he looked around. The space had indeed become bigger. He originally thought that there was no difference apart from this, but when he looked carefully, there was actually an additional pond not far away. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.